Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We see everyone slowly coming into this webinar. Thank you all for joining. We'll give it the few typical 1 to 2 minutes wait to let the waiting room fill up, and then we'll get started with today's session, which is our USA Market Discovery Workshop under the Seeds of Bravery program. So we'll be with you in a few minutes. Grab a final coffee or a cup of tea. We're managing lots of different time zones here, so you'll hear me say good morning, good evening, and good afternoon throughout this entire session. Maybe as we get started, I see the waiting room is still filling up. I can start with some typical house rules that you can expect from these market discovery workshops. So we'll have a series of speakers join us during the session of today. You have the Q&A function available to you here on Zoom. So at the bottom, instead of the chat function, you have the Q&A function available to you to share your questions or thoughts, whatever you would like to ask our fellow speakers here today. We'll try to address all of your questions in due time during the session, and if there's anything that we cannot address, we'll follow up on it thereafter. And I think we are just about getting ready to start, so I can start by introducing myself and the agenda for today. So my name is Carolina. I'm from Plug and Play Tech Center based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And together with our fellow partners here from Seeds of Bravery, we are hard at work conducting and doing a lot of different initiatives for the huge scope of Ukrainian entrepreneurs that we are supporting with the Seeds of Bravery project. For this workshop, I'll introduce the agenda in a few minutes, but I'll also introduce a little bit more about Seeds of Bravery. If you're new to the project and would like to know more, of course, you can always follow up with more questions with us there after this session. For now, here's what you can expect from today. So we have a full agenda. We're trying to give an insider look into what the US market looks like for entrepreneurs interested in expanding their business into this market. It's a diverse and broad market, so we cannot unfortunately cover everything in this session, but we hope that the lineup of speakers that we have here today speak from a position of understanding what the market with a key focus on Silicon Valley has to offer for you. Also, how you can consider, the legal requirements and more the actual practical elements to incorporating a business in the US. And thereafter, in the second half of this session, we'll also hear from specific founders and deep dive into the founder experience. We'll do this in some sort of interview style session, so please don't hesitate to ask your questions to our founders later on in the session. And lastly, we'll end with a look into our activities as Plug and Play in the US. So we have over 18 verticals that we could showcase. We've selected 3 key verticals that we think are also valuable for our audience of Ukrainian entrepreneurs to understand what's available for you in terms of key trends, key opportunities that are available for you and to watch out for in 2025 and beyond. So this is a bit of the agenda for today. We'll also have some breaks thereafter in the middle of the session. I will point those out to you when it's time. We did have some unfortunate cancellations earlier this morning due to unforeseen circumstances, so we are not able to have all the founders that we would have liked to have showcased here today, but we can of course create opportunities for that later on in the Seeds of Bravery journey. So a bit about Seeds of Bravery. I'll keep it brief because I know many of you are already introduced. As you know, Seeds of Bravery is a 20 million euro project funded by the European Union, specifically under the European Innovation Council Small and Medium Enterprise Agency. The main scope and aim of the Seeds of Bravery project is to foster diversity and promotion in the deep tech industry, to stimulate and support Ukrainian innovations and Ukrainian ventures that are also benefiting end users in Europe, Ukraine, and the rest of the world. We do this through our different accelerator, incubator, and different more startup-focused projects and programs. But a core aspect of this, of what we are here today, is also to create resources and available opportunities for startups to learn more from those individuals in these innovation ecosystems all over the world that can contribute also to your innovation success. The program is conducted, or let's say organized with together with 17 consortium partners. You can see them all listed here. Special shout out today to Access BIC, who is supporting with these market discovery workshops. If you didn't know, we have a series of market discovery workshops available on our YouTube channel. And I can also showcase to you guys how you can find those later. The main scope of this project is to support with grants. So for every program that each beneficiary is participating in this project, there are a total of 12 million euros in grants available to the Ukrainian entrepreneurs. What we do next to those grants is also support other non-financial activities. So this includes matchmaking activities, female entrepreneurship programs, leadership programs, support in application to European funding calls, including EIC funding calls, also market discovery and market fast track programs, which is why we're here today. And finally, we also do deep tech incubation, acceleration, and some specific programs for scientists, innovators, journalists, and more. There should be one final slide here, but I have missed it. So it'll probably come at the end of the session. It's our final call to action. If you're still waiting to apply for Seeds of Bravery and you have not done so yet, check it out today. You have 10 days until the January 25th to do your final application for Seeds of Bravery. So it's one of the final opportunities you'll have to apply. But back to the topic of today, we have a speaker already here waiting in our waiting room. I would like to introduce you all to Sean Randolph. Sean has agreed to come speak to you and present the Navigating the Silicon Valley Ecosystem. Sean is a part of the Bay Area Council, Senior Director at the Bay Area Council. And for those who don't know, the Bay Area Council Economic Institute is a business association of San Francisco supporting economic development, innovation, sustainable business and entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley and the Bay Area. Give me a second. I will switch the screen sharing to represent Sean's slides. Sean, good morning. Thank you for being here with us. Can you test your mic really quickly?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Outstanding.
So I'm going to set up the screen share. Give me 1 second to switch the window. And take it away, Sean.
That is lovely. So thanks very much, Carolina. Glad to be connected to you all. I think this evening where you are, the sun is just coming up here in lovely California. So glad to be spanning the world here today. As Carolina said, I'm with the Bay Area Council. We are the regional business organization for the San Francisco Silicon Valley area of California. And we focus on a pretty broad range of topics, but very central to them is the innovation ecosystem in our region, how it works, and then how startups and other partners from around the world connect to it and play in it. And so I'll go through a short series of slides to try to give you a basic lay of the land, a landscape of the major components that really define how Silicon Valley works and how they interact, which is really a narrative about how partners from around the world sort of engage and become a part of this system. Just a footnote, terminology, we can say Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley technically is the peninsula of the San Francisco Bay Area that is south of the city of San Francisco. But there's a large tech aggregation in the city of San Francisco. And so we use the terms interchangeably, San Francisco and Silicon Valley, even though there's a little bit of a geographic distinction. And it also includes a part of the East Bay on the east side of the San Francisco Bay. And so basically when we say Silicon Valley, it's a stand-in for the entire region in this part of California. So we'll get into it from there. So I think you're advancing the slides, Carolina? Lovely,
Yes.
thank you. Let's go to the first one then. So first, just describing it at a very high level. So it's an ecosystem, meaning there are very, very diverse, different kinds of institutions and actors involved, and they're all organically connected. It's not just about the standalone entities, but it's how they intersect. There's also a sort of unique combination of different technological disciplines. So It's not just semiconductors, it's not just biotech, it's not just one field or another. You have almost a full spread of technologies significantly represented. And that becomes interesting because a lot of innovation happens at the intersection of different technologies. So we have in this region the largest IT sector in the world. We also have either the largest or second largest biotech sector in the United States. And guess what? You put them side by side, then you get synthetic biology and bioinformatics and things of that nature. So I think the fact that multiple technological disciplines are represented is quite significant. They're linked by networks, and the networks are extremely important. And I think part of our conversation today, part of this initiative is about networks that can connect you into that system. And then there's a foundation behind that that all this is built on. And one is a really deep base in R&D, another is venture capital, another is basically an attitude on the part of investors, as well as startups, of accepting high levels of risk in return for potentially high rewards. And again, in the business and research community, a spirit of open innovation, which really means an emphasis on collaboration as opposed to working in silos. So I'll come back to each one of these in a bit more detail, but let's go to the next slide. So if we look at the foundation, and this is really looking at the research part of the story, I think people are familiar generally around the world with Berkeley and with Stanford, but in fact, there are 5 major research universities in the region. University of California, San Francisco is one of the 2 or 3 top biomedical campuses in the United States, an amazing source of both companies and technology around life science. University of California, Santa Cruz, very strong in engineering, maybe the best astrophysics department in the United States. University of California, Davis, hands down, definitely the #1 agricultural technology university in the United States and perhaps in the world. So they are all together within a short distance of each other. And they're significant in at least 2 ways. One is they generate a lot of patents and a lot of licenses, many of which get picked up by big companies, small companies as well. And many, of course, not all, but many are commercialized. But then they also produce an extraordinary number of faculty and graduates who found companies. So a significant percentage of the startups in the region, if they're not coming from outside the US, they are originating at one or another of these universities, all of which have very active programs to identify and support entrepreneurs. Next. So again, on the research side of it, there are national laboratories. I think almost 20% of the national laboratories in the US are located in this region. So these are United States government, federal government research facilities, and they are various sizes, but they're all quite large, and they have different kinds of histories. And so some of them, like Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, they cover everything. It's non-classified research, and they are doing work on everything from climate change to manufacturing technology. It's very broad. Some of them, like Lawrence Livermore and Sandia, are actually nuclear weapons laboratories. They were created back in the 1950s to really sort of at the start of the nuclear program. But what happened over the years is they diversified and they grew, and they still have that core mission, but they're into a lot of other things, and they're working to commercialize their activity as much as possible. So they do amazing things in energy, fusion energy, a wide range of applications. SLAC, that's one of the major particle accelerators in the world, and a lot of other parts of this system. So they bring together thousands and thousands of scientists at a high level. And while not everything they do can be commercialized, they have accelerators. They do everything they can to help get their technologies out in the marketplace, including working sometimes with startups. So an example of how they're looking outward, not just inward. So it was when they began, they had one client, the US government. Today, in fact, it's much broader. So an example is what they call the Livermore Sandy Open Campus. So these are two big facilities. They have their roots in the U.S. nuclear weapons program many decades ago. So they're national security facilities. You can't just walk in the door. You need a security clearance to come in. So that makes it a bit challenging to work with industry. But they have about 1 mile of open ground between them, which they together call the open campus. There are no walls, there are no fences. You don't need a security clearance to go. And they have meeting spaces, they have laboratories, they have high performance computing facilities. Sorry, there's an accelerator in the area, and it makes it really easy for companies to come and work with them. And that's an example of how different institutions are collaborating now to maximize their economic impact and getting their technologies out in the market. Next one, please. So examples again, there's something called the Joint Bioenergy Institute. We see these patterns of collaborative research involving many different research institutions. And in this case, you can see about a half dozen different ones. And basically, the Institute, JBay, focuses on producing energy from plant life. Pretty straightforward. But they have been very successful in generating dozens and dozens of startups through their research. And maybe the best example of how California does this are the California Centers for Science and Innovation. So these were started in the early 2000s by the state of California, believing that the University of California system, which has 10 campuses, could be even more impactful supporting technology development in the state. So they said, we're going to create 4 of these centers. We're going to give you each $400 million to get going. And you tell us the fields you want to work in. So 4 were selected: telecommunications, nanotechnology, IT, and bioinformatics. The qualification to get the money was you need at least 2 campuses to be collaborating. You just can't apply as one campus. The idea is to incentivize collaboration. So you need 2, very often 3 campuses are together on these things. They have been wildly successful. If you think about a big research proposal people are bidding for, you can have a great university department, you're going to apply for it. But what if you had the power of 2 or 3 important university departments and all those faculty, all those students, powerful proposals come out of this, which has attracted more research funding. So this is just to say that there is, where we are, a very, very strong collaborative drive to break down barriers between different institutions and between the institutions and industry to accelerate research and accelerate its commercialization. Next one, please. So there's also a lot of independent research facilities, quite varied, like the Buck Institute for Research on Aging is the first research center in the US to focus entirely on the science of human aging. Gladstone Institutes, 17 different laboratories in the life science field. They do a lot of amazing stem cell research, for example. The SETI Institute, ever watched that Jodie Foster movie way back when, The Search for Intelligence in Space. But it's also about astrobiology and how you move humans into space in distances, for example, next step going to Mars. So a lot of these independent nonprofit laboratories that tie into the bigger system. Next, please. So that's kind of the research based. It's always going on. The economy can be good, it can be bad, but that research just keeps going and going and going. If we switch now to the corporate side, and these are large corporations, what's going on there? Well, a lot of companies in the US and around the world used to do a lot of basic theoretical research, less so today, but a lot of them still do in the Bay Area. AI, you can imagine all the life science. So there's a lot of Bay Area headquartered companies and different industries doing this, but we started to see in the 2000s a lot of companies that are not local. They're headquartered someplace else in the United States, and they started to show up here with a variety of things, but primarily research labs. And what was that about? It was the perception that technology was moving very quickly here, and they needed to be part of that conversation, not just observing it. They needed to be physically here, engaged in where the cutting edge of research was going. And so they opened these facilities, And these are just examples of companies, but you can see a real range of different kind of companies. Lots of biotech, biopharma, financial services, aerospace, e-commerce, lots and lots of different things. So the next slide. This moves over into the global area. We started to see early 2000s to mid 2000s, a lot of companies that are not even headquartered in the US, they're headquartered somewhere else in the world, who started to open up offices, innovation centers, and research labs here in the region. And this is just a short list. The actual list is about 10 times longer, but it just does indicate you see a lot of different countries represented, a lot of different industries. You know, you've got a lot from the automotive sector, the food sector, insurance, IT, telecom, lots and lots of stuff. So if you just look at that list and you multiply by about 10, you know, you'll see the scale of the presence of companies from around the world that have a technology presence of one kind or another here in the area. Next. So here's just an example, the automotive sector. So the Bay Area is not known generally as a center for the automotive industry. You know, it's not Stuttgart, you know, it's not Detroit. These are very different places. But nevertheless, almost every automotive company in the world of any significance is here. They have a physical presence here, and it's primarily around R&D. So we do have some really important players like Tesla, which is really critical for us in the EV sector globally. But all these other companies you can see, Baidu USA, well, Chinese company, but they're testing out automated driving. A lot of this is around vehicle autonomy and electrical vehicles. And so this is a big conversation, but again, they're not producing, they don't have factories, but they're really looking at what's the future of automated driving, what's the future of EV technology. Next. So just a note on patents. So we've kind of gone from the corporate sector into some broader stuff. If you think about that research base and its product, the region is wildly productive of intellectual property. So massive levels of patents being produced. And no matter, you know, how you look at it, is it the total number of patents? Is it patents per million inhabitants? Is it a percentage share of US patents? This part of the world hugely outperforms. Considering that our region is only about 7.5 million people, much, much smaller physically than places like New York, places like Los Angeles, much larger, but you could just see the outsized production of intellectual property. Next. A big part of the story, I think uniquely, is venture capital. So the industry was essentially created here, and we could talk a lot about how that happened. But basically, at any one year on average, about a third or more of the venture capital being invested in the United States is invested in companies locally. Sometimes that goes down to maybe a third. Sometimes it goes up to almost 50%. But if you consider, again, this is not a very big region. There is a density of venture capital that is available and that attracts companies from around the US, but also around the world. And it's everything from pre-seed, seed, every stage, right up through late stage growth capital. Next. A word about the demographics, and this kind of gets us into the international area. The workforce here, kind of the people in the tech community especially, very globally diverse. In the US, maybe 25% of tech company founders came from another country. In the Bay Area, it's 45%, so almost double that. So the leadership, the founders, the people who are working in the tech community, it's a very, very international community. And you walk in a lot of these companies, you look around, you're not quite sure where you are because people are there from everywhere in the world. I mentioned at the outside the business culture, this idea of acceptance of risk and failure. And the basic idea there is that investors very often in the venture community here, as opposed to venture communities in a lot of other places, are inclined to accept high levels of risk because very often they want to create an industry or disrupt an industry. They're looking for the big reward, the big payout. And to do that, you have to take a high level of risk. And with that, they're willing to invest in startups that they think can help that happen. And if you're a startup, if you fail in your first company, you know, some places maybe that's the end of your story. Here, the practice is quite common. And I know a lot of people where this has happened. Maybe their first company failed, or even their second. But if you got the right idea and the right kind of learning experience, very often you can continue to get funded, and then you maybe you hit your success on the third try. So I think, but that requires a lot of fortitude on the part of the founders and the investors. But it is part of the culture to accept high levels of risk and even failure. I mentioned the networks earlier. They're both very formal. There are a lot of structured opportunities to connect. They're very informal as well. I think one of the unique things here is doors tend to be very open. People are, for the most part, quite willing to introduce you to people who they think can help you, you know, open doors, help make connections. And so I think compared to a lot of places, it's relatively easy to be introduced into and move into the system. And then finally, this idea of mobility, permeability, flexibility. I mentioned earlier this cross-disciplinary interaction, but there's a lot of flow of people and information across institutional boundaries. So, you know, we find that one of the barriers to innovation is people working in silos, separation of universities from industries, from the startup community. And the more the barriers can be reduced, the more people and information can flow, the fewer the limitations on innovation, and the more likely it's going to happen faster. Next. So one way we like to think about it is to say, well, we're in an Olympics, and it's a 100-meter race, and every 10 meters there's a barrier. Now, and these are institutional barriers that would inhibit collaboration with various partners. If they're high, let's say it's an 8-foot high brick wall, you have to stop, like, how do I get over this? And it takes some time, and you have to clamber over it, and maybe you get to the end, but it's a lot slower and more difficult. We have barriers here too, absolutely, IP and other things, but they're pretty low. And so let's say the barrier here is more like a hurdle. Maybe you're 3 or 4 feet off the ground. If you do it right, you can actually run through hurdles, and you get to the end with your commercial product on the market first or earliest, which is one reason I think why a lot of the companies with their products here tend to be really early market leaders. So again, the idea here is really looking for opportunities and ways to reduce the barriers, reduce friction in the system, and enable collaboration with partners who can help you. Next. This is kind of a big spaghetti ball, kind of hard to explain, but it's a rough map of how we kind of think it works, the major players. So if you look at the column right in the middle of the top, those are universities. You look at the longest column in the bottom, horizontal, those are just examples of companies. They're both life science and tech. Down below that, horizontal, you see SLAC, LB&L, those are the Federal Research Labs. A bunch of other stuff is mixed in there. Down at the very bottom, you see design firms. It's the biggest collection of design firms in the world. So they work with industry, especially on bringing engineering together with design. Think Apple iPhones, for example. Bottom level, CCC, CSU. Those are 2-year and 4-year universities. If you figure the founders and scientists are coming from the research universities, most of the tech workforce comes from 2-year and 4-year universities and master's programs. So they're really important. Most of the people working in Silicon Valley are coming from those 4-year universities, master's programs, and 2-year programs. The left side, you see corporate innovation centers, U.S. overseas. Those are the global and U.S. companies that have established research centers here. The right side, say In-Q-Tel, basically the U.S. government has established facilities here to kind of tap in the innovation system. And we put the entrepreneurs right in the middle, because everybody, one way or the other, is looking for and looking to engage with entrepreneurs and startups who can accelerate innovation in different kinds of ways. So they're supported by the universities. You see those arrows. that are all looking to help startups grow. The accelerators, plug and play, awesome example. Angels on the left, of course, on the right, venture capital. And the arrows are meant to indicate who's collaborating with who. You can see the dense connections, the blue lines in and out of universities. But basically, again, the entrepreneurs on this are right in the middle, because it doesn't matter if you're a big corporation, you're a US government entity, you're universities, you're all of these folks have one eye or two eyes on what's happening in the entrepreneurial community. Next. Just indicator like why the Bay Area continues to stand out. It despite being relatively small, it massively overproduces unicorns, private billion-dollar companies, compared even to much larger regions. Next. Same thing, your $5 billion company is even more so, massively produces these kinds of growth companies in technology, much more so than much larger areas, and much, we love Austin, but much more so than anything happening currently in Texas. Next. This just says something about $10 billion companies, and you can just see this big, billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, an amazing place for growth companies to expand. Next. AI, huge topic. Half of the leading generative AI companies in the world are local in the Bay Area. So it just goes to show that this is the next technological leap coming out of the Bay Area. It's made technological leaps for decades. The next thing, and now we're deep into AI with a huge concentration of AI investment and AI companies here, both huge large language model companies, but also many companies that are small application-based AI companies. Next. This just shows half of them in the world, Bay Area companies, big concentration. Next. Really significant for skills, like where are the AI jobs? It's just another way of looking at this. You see this enormous density of where are the AI job postings in the US, heavily concentrated in this region, more than the next 13 metropolitan areas in the United States combined. So a real density of talent, and of course that tends to attract talent. It attracts companies because you have the investment here and the demand for the talent. Next. The big companies, these big players, our local companies are the blue ones. You can see the leaders are all in tech. And guess what? They are all heavily invested in AI. Not the only thing they do, but they're leading this. And the last slide, I think, just to tie this all together. So there is a massive presence, as I said at the beginning, of global companies here. And the question is, why did they come? What's the draw, and what role does the region play? And we think of it as a large innovation platform, a global innovation platform where people can come and find what they are looking for, what they need, that maybe they can't find so easily at home. And they can take that away. They can contribute, be part of this. They can take away these different things to help them grow globally. So if you start with the startups, the scale-up companies, why do they come? One is access to risk capital. Often it's not that hard to find, say, angel investment at home or maybe seed, but especially at the point a company is going to grow globally. Maybe they've got a foot in their local market, their national market, maybe they're in their regional markets, but at the point if they want to be globally competitive, they almost have to come here. It's the best standard in the world for where the competition is, and it's where they tend to come for growth capital. And that's where just a lot of our investment takes place at that stage. There's also for companies that have a strategy to be acquired at some point, it puts them next to major platforms and major companies that are likely acquirers. You look at that last slide with those big tech companies, they tend to massively acquire startups. So that's another attraction. There's also access to experienced mentors and advisors. So this has been going on for decades here. There are a lot of people here who have started companies, and a lot have become investors themselves, but a lot of them are available to assist and advise and serve on boards and be part of emerging companies, including companies who've come from around the world and share their experience. The big companies, they're coming. Sometimes they want access to the research at those leading universities. In almost every case, they want access to startups. A lot of those companies that I mentioned earlier, these hundreds from around the world, they put their global corporate venture arms here in the Bay Area because they're identifying startups of interest, but they also have the tools here to actually invest in those startups. Uh, Also for the big companies, smaller ones too, global business connectivity. It feels like everybody's here. So you want to connect to companies and governments from around the world. You can do a lot of that from here. Uh, AI, you remember that last couple of slides, that it's the epicenter right now for AI. It has been for a long time the epicenter for digital technology and its applications. Now it's very much AI. So if you want to know where the world is going at AI, there's a lot of advantage to being here and being part of that conversation. I mentioned earlier also this idea of disruptive innovation. A lot of these companies and investors are looking at shaking things up. And you don't want to be shook up, you want to be shaking up if you can, and that happens. And then finally, this idea of tech diplomacy, where quite a few governments, especially European ones, have located their global technology ambassador here in the Bay Area. Again, we're not a national capital, but they put their global tech ambassadors here to kind of interact on behalf of their companies and on behalf of their governments on technology development and technology policy. So I think the bottom line of all this is the region, it's not an isolated bubble. It doesn't sit floating in space as something unique that you can't access. You just look at it. It's very, very open. It's very open by design. It doesn't have a design, but just the way it works, it's very open to partners, investors, and especially startups and scale-up companies from around the world, open to technology talent. It benefits from that enormously. Remember how many companies here I mentioned that are successful have been started by people from other countries, but also as they come here, they've been able to identify and acquire the resources that help them grow and succeed both nationally and globally. So anyway, want to make sure you know the Silicon Valley is both here and it's also accessible. And I know there's definitely interest in Ukraine, a lot of admiration for the technology and the companies that come from Ukraine and just for Ukraine itself. So hope we can find some opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sean. And I'll take the opportunity now to ask our fellow audience to include any questions you would like to ask Sean in the Q&A. In the meantime, I want to also share, thanks, Sean. I don't think we could have received a better introduction to what it's like to walk through the halls of Silicon Valley ecosystem, let's say. I pictured myself walking down this 1 mile avenue of all the research centers. So really, thanks a lot for this overview. Maybe I can ask a final question to see if we save some time here from the audience. So if I am a Ukrainian entrepreneur and I come to you and ask for support, how can the Bay Area Council support me? What can we expect to come to you for what kind of support?
I'd say that we're not ourselves an economic development organization or a startup organization per se. We're more of a business-led public policy organization that focuses on economic strategy in the region. So we're not in as good a capacity as others to actually provide concrete advice exactly on what to do and how to do it. But we do have a good overview of the entire system. We can point you in directions of people and places to connect to. So I'd say we operate both as a source of information, very open about that, and as sort of a point of orientation and connection to different players in the system here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sean. And if you guys would like to connect or would have any follow-up questions for Sean, don't hesitate to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We can also answer them later or forward them to Sean. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great rest of the morning. You're, of course, welcome to stick around. We will move quickly forward onto our next session. So in the meantime, whilst our next speaker is slowly turning on her microphone and her video, I would like to introduce this second session. We will do a little bit of a drastic topic change. So where we just received a great introduction to the Silicon Valley ecosystem and all of the different stakeholders and networks available to you there, now is more of a practical legal seminar. So a bit to tickle all of your probably burning questions about what it actually means to move your company into the US and to set up your business there. I would love to introduce Deborah Lee, attorney and president at DL Bridge Law Corporation. Deborah will come, as I mentioned, give us a roughly 30-minute deep dive into how you can incorporate your business into the US. Don't hesitate to let your questions down below for Deborah. In the meantime, Deborah, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and allow you to do so yourself as well. And we'll take it from there. Perfect.
All right, let me share this first. Here. It's funny, why it's not. Here you go. Well, can everyone see this?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. Awesome, awesome. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. I'm so excited to meet all of you here. Thank you for joining us today. So my name is Deborah. I'm a president attorney of DL Bridge Law Corporation. My office is in Silicon Valley, actually in the Plug and Play headquarters. So I know you guys have questions about, oops, let me see why it's not moving. Oh, there you go. About how to incorporate our U.S. company in America. So let me briefly explain what we do so you can ask us questions regarding in this matter. So we are specialized in business law and immigration law. So business law include corporate law, employment law, securities law, meaning investment law, and contract. And so we can help you basically regarding the legal service that when you operate the business in the US. And then my office will be merged into the law firm called the DLG, which is Global Law Firm, which I'm excited about. So when you have questions, please feel free to leave the question in the chat, and then I'm sure Carolina will send it to me as well.
Yes, great.
Yes. Great, great. Once again, I'm so honored and then great to be here and then explain the legal matters to you. So before I explain like how to incorporate a US company, then I wanted to explain the flip first, because flip is the most hot topic that global setups asking. And then flip is one of the things that you need to consider before you incorporate a US company. And I received so many questions about the flip. So what is flip? Flip is changing the parent company and subsidiary ownership structure. So what it means is, so you have your company in your foreign country. So we'll just call it a foreign country. So you incorporate a Ukrainian company in your country, which is foreign company, and then later, you want to go to global. So okay, hey, I want to establish a U.S. subsidiary company. So Ukraine shareholders owns the Ukraine company, and the Ukraine company owns the U.S. company. So that's the structure they are considering. But flip means flipping the ownership between two companies, changing the ownership. So at the end, the U.S. company owns the foreign company. So making the U.S. company as a parent company, and foreign company becomes a subsidiary company. So why do we do this? It's to attract U.S. investors. It says VC investment, but even for the angel investors, it's merely to attract US investment. Why? Because US investors wants to invest in the parent company only. They don't want to make the investment in the subsidiary company. So that's why, to attract more investment in the US and also to the global investors, that we are flipping the ownership structure. So parent company, US company becomes a parent company. So US investor can invest in the US parent company. But does everyone need a flip? No, it's not. So if you just want to conduct business in the US, if I want to, we'll just do the business together with the US company, or we'll just establish the joint venture, then you do not need a flip. If you just conduct business in the US, then just establishing subsidiary company is enough. So once again, foreign company, it was headquartered before, but then after flip, US company becomes headquarter, and foreign company shareholders after flip becomes US company shareholder. So once again, there was shareholders owning the foreign company, and then foreign company owned US company. But after flip between those two companies, the ownership changes. So now the shareholders own the US company, and that US company owns the foreign company, which is in Ukraine in your case. So that's the flip. But then we recommend doing the flip as early as possible, because there are some valuation and tax issues in some of the countries. So if you consider receiving the US investment and considering the flip, I would recommend checking the valuation and tax law of your company. What I mean is, there are some possible tax issues. So for the flip, there are so many things, so many ways to complete the flip. For example, that foreign company shareholders, that they sell their shares to their foreign company, and then foreign company sell their shares to the US company. That's one of the ways to the flip. But the most common and simple way is that shareholders of the foreign company exchange their shares with the US company. So, hey, I give you this share of this foreign company, give me the US shares. So they're just exchanging the shares. So consider it as, I'll give you this stock certificate. Give me a stock certificate of the US company. So just exchanging the paper. So it's so simple. There is no money involved. It's not actually selling and buying, but some country consider it as selling and purchasing, and they impose tax on that. So for example, when you initially purchased the foreign company's share, it was $1 per share, for example. But then now when you do flip, that your company valuation went up, and then now your stock price is $10 per share. Then there was $9 of gain, even though you didn't actually pay and sell. But then when you do stock exchange, then some IRS of your countries may consider it as gain. So to make a simple example, when you purchase it was $1 per share, and then when you do flip, the stock price is considered as $10 per share, and then they consider it as the IRS, your country, the IRS. Some foreign countries, IRS consider as, hey, there's $9 of a gain, and multiplied by the number of share that you own. So if you have like 1,000 share, then hey, there's $9,000 of a gain. So we're gonna impose you the tax. So you need to pay income tax on $9,000. So I've been doing this a lot, long, and then sometimes I'm at startups, hey, we need to pay according to their country tax law, we need to pay tens of $1,000s as a tax. Or even some countries like, hey, I need to pay like $1 million as a tax. Which is ridiculous, because you are doing this flip to attract more investments. But then shareholders, individual shareholders, sometimes has to pay this income tax when you do flip. So that's why I say do the flip as early as possible when the valuation of your company is low. And then when you have a smaller number of shareholders, because when you do flip, the first step should be receiving the approval from your shareholders because you are changing the company ownership structure. So the shareholder has to agree on this. So, but then if you have like 30 or 40 shareholders, you need to contact them and then all of them has to agree. But if you have like 3 shareholders, of course, it's a lot easier to convince them and then get the approval and then have them sign the papers as well. So another example is like people ask like how long or how much does it take to complete the flip process? Depends on the company cases. So there is one case that there were many shareholders and then they had 3 or 4 VC investors. So all of them said, okay, yeah, we agree, let's do flip. But then when we sent the stock exchange agreement, the VCs they had to send the stock exchange agreement to their attorney. So they're all of like 3 or 4 VCs attorney had to review. And then of course they came back with a revision request. Hey, we like this, but then change this, add this. So we had to deal with all 4 lawyers who wants to change the sections of the contract. So some of those sections that we were able to just, okay, yeah, we'll change it, but some we couldn't. So we had to continuously do the negotiation, the changing the terms of the contract. It took, a lot of time and money. So it's better to do if you are considering the flip, it's better to do it as early as possible. And then in my personal opinion, that the best structure is incorporate a company in US, make it as a headquarter, and then incorporate a company in the Ukraine. With that structure, you don't have to change anything. You can just grow globally. But ideally and practically, that it's common to establish a company in your home country first, and then establish a US company. If you go to that route, do the flip as early as possible, like because of the possible tax issue in your home country. And then you have to deal with, number of shareholders. And then sometimes some shareholders, they request a special rights and provisions. And then, so it takes more time and money as well. So if there is any questions about flip,
We do have one question, Deborah, and maybe
Okay.
it's nice to address now since the topic is
Yes.
is also on the slides. So 2 questions from Irina from Bank of Memories. Number 1, is it expensive to flip? And number 2, I'll give you the 2 questions, but if you want me to repeat it, don't worry. We have 2 companies that are not connected for now, one in Ukraine and one in the US. Is it okay to just develop our C Core from scratch when a new product is ready?
Okay, that's a very good question. So first question, is it expensive to flip? I would say yes, because it involves Ukraine CPA, who needs to check the valuation and then taxation first, and then Ukraine attorney, who needs to deal with the Ukraine company's shares, and then all that like stocks matter, and then US attorney as well. So you need to pay for 3 entities. And then the price of the flip in US side, it depends on your company size and your situation. Just like I said, if there is like 1 or 2 or 3 shareholders who's gonna agree just whatever the terms that the company wants to present, then it will be short. So like if we send a stock exchange agreement and then they just sign it and it's done quickly. But if they wants to change the terms of the agreement, then it's gonna cost more attorney's fees and more time and all that. So I wouldn't yeah, it is pretty expensive, but it depends on your case. Actually, a few days ago, I met a startup, and then he was a sole shareholder, sole director, and then sole CEO, and he was the only person. But then he developed some AI related software. In his case, the flow is a lot simpler. because he has to just agree with the terms. So depends on your company situation. Sometimes some VCs are very like picky, and then sometimes they're not. So it depends on like, and when it comes down to the ultimate question is whether shareholders will agree with the terms or not. And then other procedure is really simple. And then sometimes, in some case, when you issue the shares in your home country, you already enter into the stock purchase agreement with your shareholders. And then sometimes the shareholder wants to keep all the terms all together. But then sometimes we need to like delete some of the terms because under the US law, it's not legal. In that case, we need to change the terms. And then that's where the negotiation comes. So it takes time and then money. And then how much does it cost? It depends. And then Irina's second question was that you have US and then like Ukraine company, they are not related, but then it's a corporation. The problem is that the people do flip with spending money and time. The reason is US company wants to invest in the parent company only. They don't want to invest in the subsidiary because whatever subsidiary owns, the parent company owns it. So who owns the IP is the key factor that investors invest. Whichever owns the IP, the investor wants to invest in that company, which will be typically the US, I mean, not the US, but then the parent company. So the reason they do flip is if there is a C corporation in the US, and then it's not related with the company in the Ukraine, who owns the IP? I'm sure that US company is just established and it does not own any IP. With that structure, if Ukraine company is doing all the R&D, and then if C corporation in the US is not owning any IP, then I don't think that it's gonna attract US investors to make the investment in the US company. So when the flip has like so many issues, people ask it, then how about then we just establish the same US company and then have the same shareholder structure? Then the shareholders might agree with that, and then they won't have any complaint because they owns the same percentage of the ownership of the US company. The problem with that is, in terms of Ukraine company's point of view, hey, if we did a flip, if we incorporated a subsidiary in the US, that this Ukraine company could gain all the benefits, but then shareholder, for their individual benefit, they established the US company. And then as US company grows, its shareholder who receive the benefit, not the Ukraine company. So it could cause like legal issues as well. And then even though you established the same, the US company with the same ownership structure as the Ukraine, later on, if you receive the investment, the ownership structure will change. It won't stay the same. So they can also cause the problem as well. So that's not recommended. So just, and then some people say like, hey, then how about we incorporate a C corporation in the US and then we just transfer the IP to the US company, or how about we sell it to the US company? That's possible, but the problem of that method is that if you sell or transfer the IP to the US company, US company also has to pay for the price, which has to be the reasonable price. It cannot be too low because IRS is watching as well. So Ukraine companies send the money to the US company, so US company can pay for the IP, and then US company pay for the IP, and then Ukraine company having this income, so it's also subject to tax as well. So it's not like perfect solution as well. So that's the problem. I think we have one more question, do we?
We do indeed, and I think it follows the conversation nicely. So question from Victor, how to assess a change in stock price while doing a flip?
Oh, you need to talk to your CPA, your home country CPA, because this tax issue, maybe your home country does not have this tax law, but some countries, because I deal with many global startups, but some country has this tax issues, but not all. So you need to check with your local CPA to check the tax issue. Hey, we are planning to do this to this. So what's the valuation of this company? And then will there be stock? I mean, will there be tax when we do flip? So check it with your local CPA first. So
Maybe,
Mhm.
oh, sorry,
ahead.
Deborah. Maybe I am also naive, but what is a CPA? Maybe you can describe the
Oh, I'm
acronym
sorry.
and we can check in Ukraine
Oh, yeah,
the
I'm
equivalents.
sorry.
No worries.
Accountant. No,
Accountants. Great.
accountant. Yeah, check with your accountant. Then they'll be able to tell you about the local law. So hopefully Ukraine doesn't have this tax law. Then you can do flip anytime, whether your company valuation went up or not. But if your company valuation went up a lot, and then your country has this tax law, then you need to reduce the value of your company, and that also the accountant can help you with that, because the valuation you present to the potential investor and then company valuation you report to your home IRS, they are two different things. All right. Any other questions? I guess they're
I think
not.
that's it for
Okay.
now.
All right, I'll move on to the next question. So yes, remember when you do flip, only as possible will be better. Okay. And then next, the type of corporation when you come to US, it's typically C corporation. C corporation is most suitable type of corporation for the global startups to establish in the US. So LLC is mostly for like joint ventures. When you do joint venture, is the LLC is the typical types of corporation. And S corporation is it has protection as a corporation, but then they get to have like a benefit of paying tax as an individual, like operator, like a sole proprietor. But then S corporation, if there is a foreign shareholder, it doesn't apply. So C corporation should be the most suitable type of corporation when you incorporate a company here. So there are typically like two structure of corporation when you incorporate a company in US. The first is subsidiary, and then second is branch. So subsidiary is like when you incorporate a US company, and then that US company is owned by the foreign parent company, like Ukraine company. So even though it's a US company, it's owned by foreign company. So foreign company controls the US company and make decisions. It belongs to your company. But there are two companies. So we recommend establishing subsidiary because it can limit the liability, because there are two companies. If US company received the legal like suit or litigation, or if there is anything that US company has to be liable, it can end there. So parent company not always has to be liable for the US company's liability. So there are US company and then Ukraine company. And even though it belongs to the parent company, since there are two companies, if US company receives legal suit and litigation and all that, then US company is the one who is liable for that matter. The branch is the foreign corporation comes to US and doing business in the US. So in this case, there is only one company. So if your US office receives like a litigation suit or something, or you are liable to pay for something, then of course your home foreign company is, since there is one company and it's the same company, so the home country company has to be liable for that. So with that matter, that we recommend establishing a subsidiary. And one example is one of my clients that he established his company as a branch here. So foreign company doing business in the US. And that company tried to purchase the real estate because they wanted to use it as a lodging, and also wanted to use it as their office. So they tried to purchase it, but since it was foreign corporation, it was hard for them to purchase it. So many things to do, so many documents to provide. So they just stopped there, and then they established a subsidiary. Since it's a U.S. company, it was a lot easier to purchase the estate, the condo they were trying to purchase. So there is two ways typically, but then in the liability matter, in that point of view, the subsidiary has the benefit. So when you establish the company in the US first, you need to select the state that you want to incorporate. So there are 50 states. So you need to select the state. Typically, like people establish in Delaware or California. Those are the two most common states that they incorporated. So when you select the state, check the name availability. Check the state website to see whether the name that you want to use is available. So how do I check it? So on the Google, you just type like Delaware business name search or California business name search. And then it will show a bunch of list of things. And then the website that ends with a GOV, that's the government, abbreviation called the government. So short name for the government. So when you see the website ends with a GOV, that's the state website. Just click there, and then you can check the current business available name. So when you type your name that you want to use, when they say, oh, there's no record, which means that name is available, no one's using it. But then if this shows a list of the company, then you can just check whether it's available or not. But if someone else used the name already, then you can add more name there. Like if there is Ukraine Inc., if it's already there, someone's using it, then you can say like Ukraine Global Inc. or Ukraine International Inc. So you can just add more words to make it available. And then register with the state that you will do business. So for example, if you incorporate a company in the state of Delaware, no one's actually going into the state of Delaware and then have office there and then conduct their business in the Delaware. Typically, they establish a Delaware company and comes to California and do their business in the California. In that case, you also has to register with the state of California. Hey, we are Delaware Corporation, but we want to do business in the state of California. So give us authorization. And it's a pretty simple step. And then you need to apply for the company tax ID with the US IRS. And then you can open a company bank account. And then you can send the investment and then issue a stock. But if you have no plan to issue the visa or green card, you can just deposit any amount in the US corporation bank. There is no minimum required fund as well. I know my time's up. So I'll just answer a few questions. So how long does it take to incorporate a company? It depends on your situation, but usually it takes like a few days or a little over a week. It depends on which state that you choose, but it's pretty quick process. And then startups usually ask, hey, if we incorporate a company in the US, then which state or which country do we pay tax? It depends on like where the income was incurred. So for example, you receive the income from the US company. So you received the $1 million of income in this year from the US. But then US company needs to pay for the license fee or service fee to the Ukraine company, which is your home parent company or subsidiary, whichever. So if US company earned $1 million, but then that company has to pay to the Ukraine company for under the contract between those two companies, like license fee or service fee, and they pay like $950, 900, yeah, more than half of it to Ukraine, and then it only has like $50,000 in the US, and then you use the money to pay for the rent and then all that expense, and we only have like $10,000 left. And then that money is subject to tax in the US as well. And also the last thing I want to mention is, I'm sure you guys have heard of stock option and investing. So usually companies issue the stock option to its employee to have them work for the company at least a certain period of time. So the typical thing is the 4-year stock option, 1-year cliff, and 4-year vesting. What it is, hey, if you work for this company for 4 years, we'll give you a number of this stock. This stock will be yours completely if you work for 4 years. And if you complete 1 year, 25% of this stock will be yours. And then if you complete 2 years, 50% of the stock will be yours. So that's the stock option vesting. So many companies use to keep the employees in US, but do the vesting with the founders as well. So I've seen many cases like co-founders doing business together, 2 or 3 founders, establish business together and then issue the stock. But then, situation get changed, the relation get changed. So some of the co-founders, they leave the company, but still there are the shareholders. So it caused some problems as well. So if you impose the vesting schedule with the founders' stock purchase agreement, if some of the founders leave early, they can only, get like small number of stocks that they completed the vesting schedule. So yeah, I would recommend using the vesting for founders, not only with employees. Right. I know my time is up. So is there any questions? I think there is one question.
There is, and it's perfect
Okay.
timing. We have approximately 3 minutes, let's say. Another question from Irina. I'm going to connect you guys after. If you're interested, Irina, don't hesitate to let me know. Can we do 83B later if we decide to move to the US? Now we're working in Europe. We didn't sign 83B.
Oh, 83B election is after you issue the stock to the shareholder. So some cases that, when company issues shares, and then if there's like a vesting scheduled, then 83B election, you need to do it after 30 days, within 30 days from the date the stock is issued. So 83B election, you don't need to do it yet, but once the stock is issued, and when there is a vesting schedule, and then you need to report the 83B election to the US IRS within 30 days. So it's not, I don't think it's applicable now to you. But yes, please send me the email and feel free to contact me if there is any questions. I'd love to talk to you more and answer more questions as well.
Yeah, so I would say final call to drop your questions from Deborah. In the meantime, I want to say really a big thank you. I know this is a really burning topic that people have a lot of questions on, and it's also quite difficult to address in such a webinar. But I think, Deborah, you gave us a great introduction. From what I also take away here is that you have an extreme experience working with a lot of startups from a lot of different countries. So I would also say if you are one of these Ukrainian founders or part of your company in Ukraine and you're considering, what next steps to take moving to the US, Deborah can act as a great point of contact for your first legal questions. But of course, let us know. We can create those connections thereafter. And of course, I think I've said it already, but this session is being recorded. We will share materials after this session as well. So you can also have the time to read the concepts in more detail. Unfortunately, 30 minutes cannot cover everything, but it's a great introduction. So thank you a lot, Deborah, for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to also drop them in the chat. Even if Deborah is not able to answer them live, we'll share them with Deborah to answer in a written format later. So thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. And we will move very smoothly onto our next speaker. It feels like a marathon here, but we'll take a break right after this session with our next speaker. So I would like to introduce to everyone, whilst I'm also pulling up this slide at the same time, Juan Carlos Velten is with us here today. to a bit discuss, we've heard from the legal side, we've heard from the networks of Silicon Valley, what you can expect, and now also hearing directly from the founders and the founder experience. So happy to introduce to you Juan Carlos, who is co-founder and CEO Chief Maverick and co-founder of the Innovation Lab and also co-founder of the Swim app. JC, Juan Carlos, the stage is yours. You're welcome to share your screen when you're ready. And
Perfect.
Don't forget to try the share sound option so that your audio will.
Yeah, I will do that in a minute. And if I have problems, you tell me where to click. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be able to share my experience with you guys. I can't relate or imagine what is to do business in the circumstances that you have to do business right now. And I admire you for that. You will be amongst the most resilient generation of entrepreneurs in the world, just because what you're going through right now, right? And we're here to support you. And this is some of the things we do outside Ukraine, so that we can support you. So I'm going to share my experience and my learnings and the insights I have from Silicon Valley. I am from Mexico City. I came here in my 20s, and I've stayed here ever since. I've had 5 startups, and 3 of them have failed big time, right? 1 of them was successful, 3 failed, and 1 is still about to launch. So hopefully, I will be able to connect with some of you and dig deeper if you want after this. So I'm going to share my screen, and and I need to share the sound. Oh, perfect. I see that right here. So you see my screen, right?
Yes, if you could just press slideshow view, that would be better.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
If I lose you,
I'll let you know, don't worry.
yes, please. Okay. So slideshow, there we go. So why Silicon Valley, right? This is an area of the world that never promotes itself. You will never find anybody giving you incentives to come to do business here. We've never done that, and yet it is a magnet for people like you, it's a place where people have made huge changes in the world. So I'm going to show you a video of Steve Jobs. So I open with this slide because these are the 2 founders of Apple, one of the big companies that started here in Silicon Valley, right? These are Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Steve Wozniak was an engineer. He actually, as any engineer does, he likes to, have things perfect. He doesn't launch crap, and he thinks in technical terms. Whereas Steve Jobs was the art person. He studied art, and actually he didn't even finish that, right? So they approach the business with 2 very different mentalities of what they were actually selling. So go back a little bit to the 1970s. Apple was started in 1976. There was no internet. The computer games were really rough. And there was not even Microsoft Word or Office or anything like that. And these guys start a computer company with the vision of selling computers to people like you and I, normal people, right? So imagine 1976, 1980. Why would you buy a computer for your house? What would you do with a computer without word processor or spreadsheets or internet? Why would you have a computer in your house, right? So I'm going to show you a very short video of Steve Jobs' vision of what they were doing, because that, in my opinion, that reflects what Silicon Valley actually is. So I'm going to share the video, and Carolina, let me know if you cannot listen to it, okay?
The best analogy I've ever heard is Scientific American, I think it was, did a study in the early 70s on the efficiency of locomotion. And what they did was for all different species of things on the planet, birds and cats
Sorry,
and dogs.
JC, you stopped sharing your screen?
Stuff. They measured how much energy does it take for a goat to get from here to there.
JC?
Right? Kilocalories
You've
per
switched
kilometer or
your
something. I don't know
screen
what they
share.
measured it.
Yeah,
and they ranked
I
them. They published a list. And the Condor won. The Condor took the
Let
least
me-
amount of energy to get from here to there.
I
And
screw it
man,
up. Just 1 second. Let me get out of this. Go back here. Go back to share. Okay. So let's do it.
The best analogy I've ever heard is Scientific American, I think it was, did a study in the early 70s on the efficiency of locomotion. And what they did was for all different species of things on the planet, birds and cats and dogs and fish and man and goats and stuff, they measured how much energy does it take for a goat to get from here to there, right? Kilocalories per kilometer or something, I don't know what they measured it in. And they ranked them, they published a list, and the Condor won. The Condor took the least amount of energy to get from here to there. And man didn't do so well, came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. But fortunately, someone at Scientific American was insightful enough to test man with a bicycle. And man with a bicycle won, twice as good as the Condor, all the way off the list. And what it showed was that man as a tool maker has the ability to make a tool to amplify an inherent ability that he has. And that's exactly what we're doing here. It's exactly what we're doing here.
So Steve Jobs is telling the audience what he thinks a computer is, right? And he draws this analogy from an article he had read on, locomotion and energy efficiency of animals, right? So energy input versus speed. And, man didn't do that well. The Condor won. But if you put a man in a bicycle, it is the most efficient animal in terms of energy input versus speed. Nothing beats a person with a bicycle. And this is not a person with a car. This is not a person with a, airplane. A person with a bicycle. So for him, they were not selling computers. They were selling a tool to amplify your powers. They were selling you a tool to make you superhuman. And he called that a bicycle for the mind. And that, if you actually ask any Apple employee today, 40 years after that talk, they will still tell you what a bicycle for the mind means at Apple. Meaning something so simple, a piece of technology, of very complex technology, like an iPhone or a computer, made so simple that anybody can use it. And by the way, you don't have to read manuals, you don't have to take lessons, you need to, just like with a bike, you just need to start using it, and then you learn how to use it by start using it. And that bicycle for the mind is the mentality that pervades Silicon Valley. That's the mentality that a lot of the big entrepreneurs that have made it and the VCs that have supported them have. So this is a place that is architecture for world-changing entrepreneurs. This is a place that has been created. Nobody actually created, but it's an ecosystem that has been created by the millions of actions of millions of people throughout 60 or 70 years to support those entrepreneurs who actually want to change the world, who think so big that they want to change the world. What does this mean? Number one, we do not focus on inventing anything. Most of the technology that you see that big companies in Silicon Valley use was not invented by them. What we invent is how can we put this technology and create a tool to amplify your powers, right? So think of Uber. Uber did not invent the mobile or the payment system or the GPS tracking or the communication messaging on the device. They didn't invent any of the parts of their business model. What they invented was a better way for you to go from A to B, right? And that it has pervaded the mentality of Silicon Valley, meaning it doesn't matter who invents what. What it matters is how do you translate that invention into something useful that will make the life of a person better. And that's the mentality that everybody has here. Number two is everybody here speaks the startup language. So for example, if you go to Hollywood and LA, everybody's writing a script, everybody speaks the movie language, right? Well, if you come here, everybody speaks a startup language, meaning everybody around here, well, not everybody, but most people around here are very familiar with what startups do, the radars are open for new ideas. You meet people in all kinds of places and you share their ideas with them and they share their ideas with you. So no other place in the world has that concentration of, focus on you can call it the startup industry, right? Number three is venture capitalists understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur, right? Much better than the VCs outside Silicon Valley. So Deborah was talking to you right before me about vesting, right? And founders need to vest, right? And sometimes as a founder, you say, why would I need to vest? I started this, I should own my stock. Well, VCs understand that if you are 2 or 3 founders, you might fight. One of the founders may leave because she gets an amazing opportunity with a huge salary somewhere else while we're still struggling to, earn the minimum salary we can and all that. So what part of that VC understanding is, look, if the founding team breaks up for whatever reason and one of the founders leaves or whatever, the vesting is designed for that. The vesting is designed for you not to have to fight with your co-founders because situations change. So for example, in my first startup, we were 3 founders. One of them left 3 months into right after we had money because, we had castigated salaries and all that. And he got an offer from a consulting company making a salary 4 times what we were doing. He's still my best friend 20 years later. Why? Because we were vesting. I didn't have to fight with him. We only activated the vesting thing is you being here 3 months, you have 3 months of your shares, and after that, you leave with nothing else, and then the rest of the founders keep that stock. So that's one example of how VCs understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Another example of what VCs understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur here is that in Silicon Valley, and mostly in the US, VCs do not care about revenue or profits when you start. They focus on volume. How can you conquer this market? How can you grow as fast as you can? And then you turn on the revenue or the profit machine, right? Because if you need to have profits from year 1 or year 2, that means that you have to be less aggressive because you have to make sure that you don't lose money, right? And the problem is that, for example, in Europe, VCs want to see profits, right? They want to see profits as soon as possible, right? Well, that means that the if you have the same startup in Europe than you have here, and they were funded by VCs in Europe, they are very conservative in their growth because they cannot lose money, while the Americans are not conservative on their growth. They grow, they lose money, they get more investment. Yes, they dilute themselves, but 3 years into it, the American company is 10 times bigger than the European company just because they were not focused on profits. So for example, Amazon lost money for 20 years. Facebook had no revenue the first 7 years. So the thing about this place is that the investors understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and you have all these little things that they do to focus on that and help you focus on that, right? Another thing is that no other place has more incubators, venture capital firms, or events, right? So if I was telling you what is the Silicon Valley ecosystem and all that, I would not be able to give you a list of the incubators or VCs or events because it's in the thousands, right? So and anybody who types, a quick search on Google can find that. So the concentration of all these startups, the capital resources is unmatched. No other place on earth is more focused on startups and has more resources than this place, right? And also failing gives you points. Failure is actually good. Most entrepreneurs here have failed. And, the VCs know that, only 1 out of 20 of their investments will make it, right? And yeah, you make friends with your investors and all that, and they know that most likely you will have to close the company before anybody sees any money. And that's fine, right? Because unless you fail because you were incompetent or you were not ethical, if you fail for the normal reasons that startups fail, you show your resilience and all that, the same investors will keep investing if you bring them new world-changing ideas, right? So I've had 5 startups. I've had investors. Some of the investors have been exactly the same throughout, and I've only made them money once, right? And at the end of the day, no other place has had a bigger impact on your life. Think about it, right? Think about the apps you use. Think about the devices you use. No other place in the world has changed your life and everybody's life like this place. And it was not like, places like Detroit or places who had like a boom and then they went bust. Silicon Valley has been doing this for 70 years. And just when we think, or people think that we're done, comes genetics or comes AI. So for example, AI, 5 years ago, when nobody was talking about AI, Toronto had the biggest concentration of AI companies in the world. Right now, Silicon Valley is back in terms of, there's a new thing that is changing the world. This is the place with most concentration of AI research and startups in the world, right? So think about it. Coming here is coming to a place that is going to help you impact everybody's life if you make it. So, some other things that are good to know about this, and Deborah covered some of them, is the tax laws in the US, and especially in California, are designed to stimulate startups, right? From the 83B that Deborah was talking about, to when do you pay taxes and who pays taxes and all that, they are designed to stimulate startups. They want to ensure that the government does not burden you with taxes and things you have to pay them before you actually make it. And that's, and that's more general in the US because most of those laws are federal laws. about the tax environment in the US for startups, and they're not giving you incentives. They're just timing the way that they tax you and the startup so that you have time to grow. There's also minimum friction for starting a company. So Deborah was telling you that you can open a company online within a week, and which is funny because I was reading, I think 2 weeks ago, that in Ukraine you can do it in like a minute. But anyway, we were one of the first regions in the world where you could start a company online and have your tax number within a week, right? There's also minimum friction for operating a company. For example, hiring and firing in Silicon Valley is super easy, meaning you can hire people really fast, but you can also fire them really fast. So for example, some countries in Europe, you cannot fire people that easily. And the problem is, if you have a startup and you make it for the first 7 years, you will go through ups and downs. And the downs mean sometimes that you have to fire some people. You have to shrink. Oh, you were 30 people, you have to go back to 20 people because, the cash there is a crisis that, didn't have anything to do with you, and VCs are, hoarding some of the money, and you have to make, you have, I don't know, $10 million. You thought you would make it for 20 months on that, and now you have to make it for 30 months on that. That means you have to fire a third of your team. The laws allow you to fire people for no reason, right? As long as you treat them fairly, and as long as you're not firing them for anything illegal, like discrimination, you can fire people for no reason, which is also good because, for example, if you have a startup and Meta just fired 10% of their engineers, now you have, I don't know, 300 engineers in the market looking for, without great severance package from Meta, looking for work, and because they have like 2 years severance package from Meta, you don't have to pay them that much because they have money in the bank and they are willing to take the risk and be on the next big thing. So all this friction is minimized and designed so that you actually have time to grow, which is what a startup needs. You need time because it takes a long time. It takes between 5 and 8 years for you to actually cash out, either sell your startup or go IPO, right? And that's another thing that there's minimal friction in the US for M&As, meaning, getting bought or IPO. There's, there are masters at that. There's so many resources at that, and also the tax laws. So the 83B, for example, is designed so that if you sell, you are not taxed as much as you would than if you didn't file that little form within 30 days, right? It's also low friction for closing the business, meaning you didn't make it, you have to close the business. Well, in many countries, you close the business and you have all these liabilities and people are looking for you. In the US, especially in California, you can close a business within, no time, and, the laws protect you as an individual as long as you close the business in the right way and for the good reason, and enable you to be able to close something without damaging your reputation or, just going into the financial hole even more, right? And the last thing is, there's an unmatched concentration of talent in Silicon Valley. That's just, you have all these students at Stanford and Berkeley that graduate and want to join startups or create startups. You have all these giant companies who hire and fire people. You have all these experts in taxes, in investing. So the infrastructure for the talent focused on startups, it's so much that is just super concentrated here. So this is my last slide before we go to Q&A. You would say, well, the cost of living is very high. Yes, we are among the the most expensive areas in the world to live, right? But you can get creative. There's so many ways to get creative in terms of where you hire your team. So for example, a lot of, as you know, probably, a lot of the startups here have part of their engineering teams in places like Ukraine, right? So yeah, the cost of living is very high, but you can always get creative. Europe is very far, but most EU countries have infrastructure to support you here. So most countries from Europe and Latin America have an office here to support startups, right? They call it, I don't know, the Italian Innovation Center, the Scandinavian Center. So even though you may be far from your country, most likely your country has an office here. And for example, with Plug and Play, which I think you guys know, a lot of these countries have their offices and their support at Plug and Play. The government also will never give you grants here. Unlike other countries where they want to promote entrepreneurship, there's so much entrepreneurship here that the government will never give you a grant here. But they will give you business, meaning you can sell to the government. The government knows how to work with startups and how to make the red tape much lower for startups. And also the government gets out of your way. You do not have the government against you in terms of the laws and in terms of, you know, all the red tape that they require for other bigger businesses are non-existent for startups. And also, the last thing is competition is very intense, right? This place is so concentrated with startups and startup talent and people who want to make startups and VCs and all that, that competition is very, very intense, but it makes you smarter. So that's it. And we can have a few minutes for Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so
you
much.
can see me.
Yes, indeed. And I'll say the reminder again. So the Q&A box is open for you if you would like to ask JC any questions. I personally have some questions as well. Maybe I'll start with this one to get a little bit something, let's say, maybe juicy out of you. What has been your biggest learning experience having done business in the US? So maybe you can share a short story or a short analogy, let's say, that has taught you something about being a businessman in the US.
Yeah. So the biggest difference I've seen coming from outside the US and also dealing with startups outside the US is the level of aggressiveness that you need to have here versus anywhere outside here. So let me give you an example. So imagine you have two startups, an American startup here and another startup, I don't know, in Ukraine, right? And you do the same thing, you start at the same time, and you're pitching your startup to investors, right? Whereas you will say, okay, we need $3 million and we hope to be profitable by month 14, right? And then we'll ask for more money. The Americans will say, we need $30 million and we will not be profitable for the next 4 years. And by the way, we might come and ask for more money from you, but we're going to be the masters of the world, right? Well, you may think that the Americans are bluffing and are lying and are not honest, and maybe there's some of that. You are competing against companies that do that. So they get the $30 million that they asked for, you get your $3 million. That means they have 10 times more runway to manage crisis and downtimes than you do. Just because you try to be conservative, you were a little maybe scared, or maybe, you know, the Americans, they just like to bluff. But that's, if you're coming here, that's my biggest learning. You need to put the hat of your aggressive self here, because you are competing with companies that will do that, and VCs are used to that. So that's my biggest learning.
Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, and it's incredibly interesting to see the cultural differences and also a little bit of those tips and tricks that a founder can play in really, yeah, playing a powerful strategy in the US market. So thanks a lot for sharing. Maybe I'll leave with one final question. I think it was really well shown on your slides. You had a nice logo there of the innovation lab. So maybe you can share a few words for the audience here if they would like to connect with you, you know, for also understanding how to soft land in the US. How can Innovation Lab support entrepreneurs, Ukrainian entrepreneurs? Maybe a last call to action from your side.
Oh,
if you
sure.
will.
Thank you for letting me say that. One of my companies is called Innovation Lab, and actually we were started in Europe. What we do is we support corporations find and work with startups, but that also means that we train startups, and we train startups all the time, all around the world, US, Africa, Europe, Asia. So, you know, if you want to contact me, we can, I'm sure we can help you with tips, training, motivation, contacts. That's what we do. And we've been doing that for 20 years in 3 continents, and seems to be working for some.
Indeed, thank you. And it's great to hear, you know, at the beginning of this session, we had a more introduction to the ecosystem from the perspective of the Bay Area Council. I think you have only validated and given an additional insight to our founders as to what kind of aggression, let's say. I think that's a key word I take away from your session today. I also wrote down a lot of other useful insights that I could summarize, but I'll also let everyone sit in this reflection here for this time. So there's actually also not a question, but indeed a reflection from the MyTech team. Thank you, Carlos. It was the perfect promotion of Silicon Valley. All of us should come there and have you as a really experienced
and we want to
guide.
support you guys. You guys have created a lot of goodwill, and anybody will, if you are from Ukraine and we know what you're going through, you have an advantage because we want to support you. So do it while the window of that is open.
Thanks for those words, Juan Carlos. All right, so we will take now a short break. Thank you so much. We will take a short break. I'm just amending these slides here. We will start again in approximately 7 minutes or so, just to start on the rounded clock. The second, let's say more than half, the second third of this market discovery workshop will focus more on a founder experience from Maxim Tereshenko from Mantis Analytics, and we'll also be speaking a bit more about plug and play and how we can support you also in some different vertical areas in Silicon Valley. So I will allow you all to go for a tea break, a coffee break, bio break. I will do so myself as well, and we'll see you guys here in approximately 6 minutes. All right, everyone, we will get started soon. So just checking in if Maxim can hear me and if he can unmute himself.
Yeah, hi, Carolina.
Hello, good afternoon, Maxim.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for your patience and attending this entire session. I'll let 1 minute, but I will already start maybe with your introduction, since I think you've also been here joining this entire session. So you also maybe have some additional tips and tricks for our Ukrainian founders and team members here that might help. So pleased to introduce the highlight of well, in my opinion, the highlight of this market discovery, to have a Ukrainian founder who has actively done business in the US as well and can share more from a personal experience, a more relatable position to the audience, if we will. So please welcome to our virtual stage, Maxim Tereshenko, CEO and co-founder of Mantis Analytics. Just to set the stage, I have a short introduction to Mantis Analytics, but Maxim, please also, if you can give us your very short elevator pitch so the audience understands. What I take away is that Mantis Analytics helps organizations expand securely with the help of AI, supporting mainly with situational awareness and asset protection. But maybe you can say a few words, maybe we could call it an elevator pitch to kick off this interview and this experience sharing session that we have with you today.
Yeah, hi Carolina, hi guys. Yeah, my name is Maxim, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Mantis Analytics. We are early stage startup, basically, I think between pre-seed and seed. And Yeah, so you are correctly introduced us. We are doing like situation and awareness and threat intelligence platform to help companies manage like informational and physical threats, especially if they like impacts their business. So we help to detect, to analyze the impact, and quickly react to these incidents with the help of AI and big data. Yeah, so I can start to share an experience, but before that, I really want to make that as interactive as possible. So in this case, please ask the questions. Also, please write your current status. Do you plan to do business in US? Are you already in US? And so on and so on. So for me, it's really interesting about our startups, about our visitors today is like what's the status and what is interesting a lot in terms of the doing business in US. So I don't have a slides for today. So because I want to make that as interactive as possible and as practice as possible, because we talk today a lot of theory from my perspective, and I want to add some real experience to this theory and real insights, which and not all of these insights are like a super pleasant. As always, there are a lot of challenges and problems for startup founders. But we are Ukrainian founders are super resilient, so we are ready to attack all the challenges and so on. But it's very important to be ready for such kind of challenges. Okay, so as I say, I will start step by step. But in case of any questions, please interrupt and ask to make that is very dynamic. Okay, so like a first point, it's a taken decision, right? As a founder, as a company, do you want to go to US market, right? And the first question, is it like reversible decision or not? It's a real question, because most of Ukrainian founders basically have two main options: registered company in Europe, mostly in Estonia, or registered company in US, in Delaware. There are some kind of additional options like Poland or Spain or Finland and so on and so on, but I don't think they are super popular among Ukrainian founders. So I think it's mostly more like exceptional cases. Mostly like it's like two options: Estonia or United States. From my personal experience, we pretty early stage. We incorporated exactly 1 year ago in United States. So it's all of our experience is early experience, and it's not a legal or financial advice. It's just only sharing experience. So in this case, from my side, it's an irreversible decision. So you need to like take this decision with like big responsibility, right? With the perspective of planning for several next years, right? So what kind of market is preferable for you? Where you want to stay? On which investors are you oriented? Do you like European mentality more or US mentality? And some such kind of questions you should ask yourself in detail and do like a pretty clear answer, because this decision is will really impact your company for several years. Yes, in several years you can have like 5 legal entities and department of accountants and legal like lawyers who will manage all this infrastructure, but for the first year I think you need to be dedicated to one specific legal entity. Everybody knows that we cannot take investments to Ukrainian legal entity due to several reasons. So in this case, you need to open like a foreign legal entity. In this case, you need to take important decision. You go US or Estonia. Factors I already mentioned. So it's do you have already experience with US? Do you understand the market? Do you target this market? Do you want to relocate in US? Do you understand how to relocate to US? And so on and so on. Such kind of factors should impact your decision. Also, I think it's very important what kind of business is your startup, right? So if your startup is B2B and B2G sales oriented, as for example in our case, so it's definitely we need to be in US itself. If you are doing just B2B SaaS and you want to just register company to and Stripe account just to get money, it's another story, right? You need to be in US just to open bank account, but after that, I think it's not super important that you will be physically in US. So in this case, this factor is very important if you work on B2B and B2G. So it's absolutely mandatory to be physically in US. Okay, next question. It's after your decision, you already take decision. Wow, I'm going to United States. I will be next unicorn and so on. So you need to start from incorporation. We already discussed that with another speakers that incorporation is not a problem. It's definitely yes, because you can use different kind of services and SaaS to incorporation. We specifically use it Gas Launch. And I think it's pretty straightforward. You just pay $300, fill like several forms, and you are done. Basically, you register it C Corp in Delaware, right? So it's not a big deal. It's absolutely possible to make if you are not US citizen or something like that, you can register it C Corp without any problem and any difficulties. Also, important question: if you are physically relocate your company in US, so you need to register foreign qualification or nexus, specifically in state where your physical location, right? So for example, if you registered company in Delaware, but you physically in Texas and your office in Texas, you need to register foreign qualification or nexus in Texas, right? Because basically in US, every state is we can name it as a separate country, right? With different rules, different taxes, and so on and so on. So in this case, you cannot just sitting in Texas and doing business in Delaware. You need to be registered as a foreign qualification in Texas and follow all the Texas law, taxes, and so on and so on. And also here, additional question, in which state you want to relocate, right? Because basically it's interesting inside that one state it's like one country, right? In terms of the GDP, in terms of the market, and so on. So basically every state it's a huge market, but US has 50 states, basically 50 huge markets, right? In this case, you need to understand, for example, if you are doing finance, fintech or biotech, you can be in New York and Boston, right? If you're doing AI startups for early stage founders, you need to be in Silicon Valley, right? And so on and so on. So in this case, location is important. Location should be aligned with your business, right? With your business goal. And also, I think such different kind of services can really be supportive for you in terms of some kind of legal and financial procedure. For example, if you want hire contractors and also open US payroll, you can use Rippling or Deal and such kind of services, which really make these things much more easy. If comparing, you will do everything yourself. So in this case, on the first stages, make all the documents as standard as possible, all the agreements and so on. There are a lot of templates, a lot of services, and so on. Don't invite the bicycle, just do everything as standard as possible. As we discussed it today already, you need a CPA, but I think it's not a problem to find a CPA on the early stage. It's not a big deal to pay to CPA and close like initial taxes, but definitely you will need him or her. Okay, so in this case, it's about incorporation and so on, and about lawyers. So basically, there are several Ukrainian companies which can help you on the first stages in legal questions in US. So I don't think it's super mandatory on the early stage to have like US legal advisor and so on, because they are really expensive, right? US legal consultant can cost like $500 per hour or something like that, which is like crazy amount for the early stage startup. In this case, as I say, use as much standard documents as possible, and on the first stages you can use some Ukrainian providers and companies and so on. Okay, so next tricky question, it's bank accounts, right? Because with bank accounts, situation is much more difficult, and we know the situation with Mercury Bank, which basically ban all Ukrainian founders just because of nationality from my perspective, because I don't see any kind of additional reason for doing that. In this case, I don't think it's possible to open bank account in Mercury now if you are Ukrainian, and also if you live abroad in you and Ukrainian. There is some kind of options with Brex, so you can definitely investigate that. But main rule, I think, that you should be in US, like temporary or continuously to open bank account. I don't think it's possible now simply to open bank account if you are not in US, if you are remote. Maybe there is some kind of options, but personally, from our investigation, from our experience, it's not possible, and situation changed dramatically last year because of the war and all the sanctions. Also, be aware that if you are as Ukrainian, if you are registered in occupied territories, for example, in the Zaporizhsky region or Kherson region and so on, you can have additional problems because these regions are under sanctions, and you cannot prove that you are from the city which are not occupied. So basically, the whole regions under the sanctions, and in this case, you can have a problem for opening accounts, you can have a problem for transactions, and any other kind of problems. So in this case, I recommend to change your address to more like a central or western part of the Ukraine. Okay, so
Maxim,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. We cannot see it, but our fellow Zoom host is receiving a lot of questions that she is sharing with me. Do you mind if we address them quickly, or would you like to?
Let's do some pause and
Perfect.
address the questions.
I have 4 questions for you. Let's start with the first one. Did you seek US-based investors? And if so, what differences did you notice in their expectations compared to investors in Ukraine or Europe?
Yeah, so very good question. So it's really different world in terms of the investors. First of all, the checks are really much more higher comparing with Ukraine and in Europe, right? So basically, in US you can raise like $4 million on the pre-revenue stage. It's possible, right? Which is absolutely crazy, absolutely impossible in Europe, in Ukraine, but in US it's possible. And also it's a variety of investors. It's basically, it's like, I don't know how many, like, is it like thousands, 100,000 of investors. It's like initial feeling when you came in US and you see like it's a huge diversity, and you can find a specific investor for fintech, for crypto, for security, for national security, and so on. So it's basically a huge diversification. So that's a like good news. The tricky things is that basically US investors want everything US based. I mean, you need to have US traction, you need to have US presence, companies should be registered in US, and so on. So basically, I can simplify that US investors need like everything US, right? Some investors just asked us that we should have like the whole team in US. It's absolutely crazy for me in the modern world. It's not a very often happening such kind of requests, but yeah, be ready just for that. So US investors are really oriented on the local market.
Great, thank you for that. Maybe a follow-up question that slightly related. Were there specific funding programs, grants, or accelerators that helped you transition your business to the US?
Yes, a very good question, and I think accelerator is a very good idea, but just verify the accelerator, right? Because also in US, like hundreds or thousands accelerators. So in this case, I recommend only top tier, right? By top tier, for example, it's definitely YC. No questions here. For example, we finished at Alchemist Accelerator. It's basically top one B2B and B2G accelerator. I think it was very helpful. So in this case, yeah, accelerator, it's a very good idea, especially if you are new, if you want to move to US. But I recommend only see on the top 10, top 1 tier of accelerators.
Yeah, great. Maybe also some two last related questions. I will combine them into one since I see they're very similar. How did you establish a professional network in the US? So what communities or events were the most helpful? And secondly, were there any Ukrainian or Eastern European networks or communities that supported your move there too?
Yeah, it's a very good and very important question, because definitely you need to build a network here. And what can easily start? You can build a relationship with Ukrainian diaspora and Ukrainian community here, especially in Silicon Valley, right? If you like came in San Francisco, just I visited San Francisco in November, in October, it's like huge Ukrainian community. It's a lot of events, meetups, conferences, I don't know. It's like feeling you're like in Kiev, not in San Francisco, because amount of Ukrainians here like are huge. In this case, it's very easy just to build a relationship. So in this case, you can start from that because it's like comparably easy exercise. The next step, just to check what's kind of a specific community you have for your business, right? So if you're in finance, look for finance and so on and so on. Like it's like a huge amount of communities. Americans are very helpful. They are always ready to help, are always ready to advise and so on. So what is really difficult to choose, right? Because you can just understand, for example, you come into San Francisco and you see like several hundred events in a week about like AI startups, right? How to choose the right one. It's really difficult. So in this case, the main question is like how to choose like a correct community and so on.
Great. So that was it for the questions. Our time is slowly coming to an end. So maybe I'll give you 2 minutes to wrap up your final tips, tricks, final words, let's say, for the audience. And of course, if there are questions thereafter, we can also follow them up with Maxime and share them with him.
So just a few points to wrap up. I fully agree with the previous speaker that I would say competitive landscape here is tough, right? So it's we cannot compare with Ukraine in Europe. So it's basically like thousands of competitors in every niche and so on. So you should be like, first of all, you should be very specific, right? You should understand your niche and be the best in this niche, right? Because in any kind of small niche, you will have competitors, and it will be a lot of competitors. That's the first point. The second point that you need to adapt your product and your mentality for US market, because it's a really, really different planet in many cases. And when you like visit US as a tourist, you cannot recognize it. But when you like start really to do the business, you understand that, okay, there are a lot of really difference, and you need to like understand that deeply. The main difference, I think, it's aggressive sales. For Americans, it's absolutely okay to call you in the middle of the day and try to sell something without any problems and sell very aggressive. Which is absolutely unbelievable for Ukrainians. Okay, how you can call just unknown people and sell something, right? It's crazy. So in this case, main change of mentality, it's sales, and aggressive sales, and so on. But in terms of the possibilities, it's like I don't know, it's like thousands of possibilities in terms of the accelerators, investors, customers, and so on. It's like a huge market. You need just to find your place and adapt your mentality for US market.
Thank you so much, Maxime, for those final words. I think it's a word I will also take away, this mentality, this Silicon Valley mindset, something that we see from afar, but also great to hear your experience validating kind of the aggression that we also heard from the previous speaker that is required for success in this market. So thanks a lot for joining us, Maxime. We will closely follow the journey of Mantis Analytics and your activities. I know also as a participant of Seeds of Bravery, it's great to have your representation. So really thank you so much for coming here today and taking the time to share your experience.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for such kind of great initiative.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, Maxime. We will move quickly on to the next session of the final session of our market discovery workshop here today. I will slowly introduce our next speaker, Francesco, while he hopefully turns on his camera. There we go. So in this final session, you've heard quite a few name drops of plug and play here in this market discovery, and we're also one of the participants in Seeds of Bravery project. Plug and play does a lot. We have a huge coverage in the US with quite a few different offices. We can share maybe the number later in a more precise manner than just off the top of my head. We've picked 3 key verticals to showcase here today, where we want to also explain kind of the key trends and use cases that we see as popping up in this in these vertical areas. Highlights also sometimes on investment use cases in these verticals, and really just an introduction to what you can expect. Our first speaker is Francesco Carmiciano, who is a part of the Plug and Play Ventures team, most specifically part of our InsurTech vertical. And Francesco will also give a short introduction to Plug and Play. Let me stop my share and allow you to share your screen. The stage is yours, Francesco. We'll be followed thereafter with representatives from our healthcare vertical and also our deep tech vertical. So stick around. Even if InsurTech is not your main vertical area, it might be interesting to learn from these use cases. Great. We see your slides. Maybe you can just say a word to test your
Perfect.
microphone.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Loud and clear. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Carolina. And hi, everyone. My name is Francesco. I'm an analyst here at Plug and Play InsurTech. Joined the company nearly a couple of years ago. And today we'll be going through an overview of what we do here at Plug and Play InsurTech. So let's start with our corporate innovation business arm. Here at Plug and Play InsurTech, within our corporate innovation business, we help more than 60 insurance organizations globally. Among them, you have nearly every type of insurance organization, ranging from insurance and reinsurance carriers to MGAs, brokers, you name it. For our Silicon Valley office, some of the most relevant partners include companies such as, State Farm, Principal Financial, Travelers, Tokyo Marine, Prudential Financial, and many more. Essentially, we help these companies with their innovation and technology needs by operating as an end-to-end innovation partner. And I'll explain what that means in a couple of minutes. Of course, do not take our word for it. A great testament to how we help our corporate partners is represented by the testimonials that you see on your screen. Essentially, we can help these insurance Fortune 500 firms with, accessing the most promising startups and emerging technologies so that they can deploy them within their businesses. One quote that we always like to share is from one of our corporate partners. This is actually from the fintech vertical. We are talking about US Bank, where you have the senior vice president of fintech partnerships that mentioned that for every dollar they have invested in Plug and Play, that has returned over $100 in revenue to the bank. Going back to what it means to operate as an end-to-end innovation partner, here at Plug and Play, we do multiple things. We'll start with deal flows. Essentially, we hear and analyze a challenge or a group of challenges from one of our corporate partners. Based on that challenge, we will scout for startups that provide relevant use cases. Together with the partner, we will choose for top startups from that initial list, and we'll organize a deal flow session during which the startups will be able to pitch to the corporate partner's innovation team. To provide a quick example of what that can look like within insurance, let's say that a corporate partner manages personal auto insurance claims, and they manage those manually and with legacy systems. That maybe works when you have, a low insurance claims volume, but when the number of claims increases, that can be a challenge, and it can lead to delays in claims processing, which can ultimately lead to customer dissatisfaction, lower NPS scores, you name it. What we can do in this specific situation is that we will scout for startups providing emerging solutions for claims management. Think of startups such as Tractable, Video, Claims Genius, Raven AI, etc. And with the corporate partner, we'll decide which are the top startups. We'll invite those top startups to attend a deal flow session, and hopefully one of these startups ends up landing a POC, a contract of sales, maybe a partnership with an insurance carrier, which will use the technology to improve its claims processing capabilities. Going back to our innovation services, as I mentioned, we are an end-to-end innovation provider, which means that we provide other innovation services such as innovation workshops, trend session, innovation days, corporate partners roundtable, and many more. Essentially, we don't only help insurance carriers by helping them navigating the technology landscape, but we operate as a trusted partner throughout the whole innovation journey. And last but not least, this is very important, our Silicon Valley InsurTech program. We are different from the YCs, Techstars of the world in the sense that these are equity-free programs, and they are more focused towards business development for our corporate partners. As you can imagine, our insurance corporate partners use these programs to scout for emerging startups, solutions, technologies, etc. We run these programs twice per year, and these programs run for 12 weeks total. The starting part of the program is that we put together a list of the top 100 InsurTech startups that we have seen in that specific time period. We send that to our insurance corporate partners. The corporate partners vote on the top startups, and with those votes, we invite the top startups to attend the first event of the program, which is known as the Silicon Valley InsurTech Selection Day. During that event, Selection Day, startups pitch in front of the corporate network, they attend networking sessions, and also one-on-ones with the innovation teams of these corporate partners. During the event, corporate partners vote again, and the top startups are selected to join the 12 weeks program. During these programs, startups can further connect with our corporate partners and hopefully work on use cases and land POCs, partnerships, contract of sales, etc. And moreover, startups can attend mentorship sessions, access industry resources, and more. At the end of the program, we have what is our flagship event, which is the Silicon Valley Summit. During Summit, startups can pitch again to our insurance corporate network with them, and more. Moreover, Summit is a great opportunity to also connect with our investor network and corporate partners that are outside of the insurance industry. Imagine that you are, an insurtech startup that has also mobility solutions. Well, at Summit, you can meet also our mobility corporate partners, for instance. And just for reference, our last Silicon Valley Summit had an attendance of over 4,000 people. Maybe let's transition to our venture capital business arm. As you may know, we do invest in early stage startups, pre-seed up to Series A, and we do invest within the insurtech space, of course. Just for reference, our tickets range between $50,000 and $250,000, and we operate as a follow-on investor. We do not lead rounds, and we tend to co-invest alongside other institutional investors. Within the insurtech space, we invest across multiple focus areas, as you can imagine. But the 5 you see on the screen are among the most promising focus areas we are tracking right now for 2025 and beyond. Maybe let's start with novel ways of understanding traditional and emerging risks. Here, essentially what we are seeing is that thanks to the emergence of technologies such as AI, machine learning, and more, and the relevant increase in data availability and multimodal data ingestion capabilities, there have been startups and technology companies that have been able to build risk analytics and risk prediction models that help insurance carriers essentially gain a more accurate vision of the risk they are looking to insure. A couple of relevant examples of startups in this niche are 7 Analytics, which is a great portfolio company of ours, and Rior20, and they operate within the flood risk modeling space. Moving forward to technology-enabled business models, what we are seeing here is that, as you may know, there has been a transition from business models that in the past aimed to disrupt the traditional insurance model to business models that actually enable the traditional insurance model. We have seen in the past the emergence of startups such as, Lemonade, Root, Hippo, Oscar Health, etc., which originally aimed to disrupt the traditional insurance distribution models by going direct to consumer. What we are seeing now is the emergence of companies that are actually enabling insurance carriers to do better their job. Think of technology-enabled TPAs, wholesale brokerages, and micro reinsurers. A couple of great examples here are technology-enabled TPAs that you can see in the slide, Ansel Health, which is another portfolio company of ours, and Reserve, which is a technology-enabled TPA on the property and casualty side of things. Moving forward to operational efficiency, this is another interesting focus area we are tracking. Essentially, this focus area includes all of those emerging applications tailored to the insurance industry. Essentially, we are talking about SaaS companies that are developing AI or machine learning powered applications that can help insurance carriers be more productive and efficient. We are tracking other technology areas as well, but for 2023 and 2024, as you can imagine, we have seen that AI-related startups have attracted most of the buyer interest. A couple of great examples here could be the underwriting platforms startups you see on the screen, such as Sixfold and Federato. Then we have risk mitigation ecosystems. Here, what we are tracking is the possibility that technology brings to the table to run risk mitigation and loss control programs at scale and achieving cost efficiency. These programs are, of course, paramount to the industry as there exists a clear relation between risk mitigation efforts and claims and loss ratios of the insurance carriers. Here we are tracking startups across a wide array of use cases, but some great examples include startups such as Voxel or SafetyIQ, which are workplace safety companies that can enable insurance carriers to mitigate the risk of workers' compensation claims arising. And here, maybe for startups that are outside of the insurance industry per se, but do risk management in other industries such as mobility, healthcare, etc. Also here, there can be a use case for insurance carriers, of course. And last but not least, another focus area we are tracking is generative AI search. We have seen the recent emergence of companies such as Perplexity, XAI, FinChat, etc. And this is a category which saw, of course, the dominance of Google for decades. These emerging companies are essentially changing the way people search for things in the internet, and we do expect this to potentially have an impact on insurance. As you may know, insurance is the most expensive cost per click category. Hopefully, websites and search engines will change the way they work, and this could have an impact on cost per click and digital insurance distribution as a whole. And with this, we'd like to end the InsurTech presentation. If in the audience there's founder or startups that are building in one of the mentioned focus areas or are simply interested in learning more about our programs, or of course investment thesis, you can contact the team and the team will share my email and contact information. Thank you very much for your time.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Francesco, sorry, for that final call to action. I'm just going to ask you to stop sharing and allow our next speaker, Laura, to start getting ready. And as Francesco mentioned, indeed, if you are an insurance company, if you identify as also a company working in one of the examples Francesco or Laura or Stefan will mention here today, contact me. In the follow-up, I will have my contact information. I will make sure you get connected to the right person internally at Plug and Play. We have a huge team of ventures analysts who are sourcing startups every day and touching on these topics every day. And we are just showcasing 3 of them to you today. So thanks a lot, Francesco. I wish you a great rest of your day and stick around if you want to. Moving swiftly to Laura. Laura, maybe you can unmic and we can check your mic really quickly. I'm also going to allow you to screen share. So whilst Laura is getting all set up, let me just introduce her. I've already mentioned here today, but I think one of the key vertical areas that we also see a lot of activity in Seeds of Bravery, which I know Laura is also supporting as a mentor in this project, is the healthcare industry. So we have asked Laura here today to also showcase some trends and insights into this industry and a bit of an outlook for 2025.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carolina. And thank you everyone for being here today. I hope that the day has been really good and with a lot of insights. So continuing with Francesco's presentation on Plug and Play Ventures team, I'm going to now move forward into our health vertical and the trends that we are seeing right now in the ecosystem. So I'm part of the ventures team. I have the same role as Francesco, so that's scouting startups for our earliest stage investments and also working with our corporate partners with their goals in innovation, with the needs that they have by connecting them with the most disruptive startups in the ecosystem. This is the market map of our health vertical. We have 3 main offices in Silicon Valley, Munich, and Singapore, but we have also launched some other programs in, for example, the United Kingdom with the University of Birmingham. We also have some other accelerator programs in Alberta, in Warsaw, and in Frisco, and we are expanding every year more and more. The corporates that I was mentioning before are divided into 3 main pillars. We can have the pharmaceutical companies in one with companies such as Roche, Eli Lilly, Bayer. The second pillar would be health systems or hospitals like White Plains Hospital in the US. And finally, we have the overlap with insurance with the life and health corporate partners. Here is a little snap of some of our investments right now. Since 2015 that we started this vertical, we have invested in more than 180 startups, and 3 of them are now unicorns, and we already had some successful exits. So we are really happy to contribute with the business development of these startups, accompanying them in their way, and we like to see them grow. Now, that was a bit of a summary of the Plug and Play health vertical, but now I want to get more in depth into the trends that we are currently seeing in the space. And here, we are mainly focused on digital health, and that's why I put here the 5 main groups of startups that we invest in. But of course, there are many more. This is just our main focus area. We have 5 different sectors, starting with the first one is the tech bio platforms, which are all these softwares that can help with the development of pharmaceutical assets, diagnostic tests. So basically everything that has to do with drug discovery, biomarker discovery, and for example, multi-omic analysis. The second pillar is health tech, which accounts for all the softwares that are accompanying medical devices, like, for example, surgical devices, imaging devices, point of care diagnosis, medical wearables, and all these kind of wearables and hardware technologies. The third one would be healthcare IT. A huge part of this ecosystem is, of course, the health systems, the hospitals, and there is a huge infrastructure behind it. So we have a whole pillar for this, where we support startups that are working on workflow softwares, data management, billing and insurance, and, for example, clinical trial management. The fourth one is digital therapeutics. These startups are usually patient-facing, and here we have all these digital applications that actually work in therapeutics and diagnosis, like, for example, Hive, with digital biomarkers for respiratory or oco health. And last but not least, we have digital care. They are also usually patient-facing, and are all the startups that are related to preventative health, chronic disease management, telehealth practices, or value-based care. However, as I was mentioning, this is just what we are currently focused on, but at the whole ecosystem level, there are other trends and innovations that are occurring, and other shifts that we are seeing in the industry. And first, I wanted to highlight patient as a digital consumer. This is something that is also happening, of course, in Europe, but it's really taking power in the US, just because as there is more privatization, patients actually do a lot of out-of-the-pocket buying of over-the-counter medicines or products, and that's why this is a huge part of the ecosystem. We are moving into the era of do-it-yourself healthcare, let's call it, where patients are actually choosing what they want to, the medicines that they want to take, the products that they want to use, and they are looking for personalized solutions. So what we are seeing is that they are relying less in primary care, which oftentimes gives a generalistic approach, but they are looking more into digital solutions that actually explain them about their health, about the offers that are out there, in a manner that it's tailored to them. So the 4 areas here that I highlighted is the first one, self-service, where patients actually take control of their health, and they demand off-site options. These started to boom after COVID, of course. We were all at home. A lot of solutions appear for telehealth, to ship tests to the patients at home for self-collecting, but we've seen this grow more and more. And right now there are even startup solutions that are bringing phlebotomies to have blood tests at home, and even treatment options which can be really powerful for immunosuppressed patients. The second one, and I think that it's really important, is to understand their own health. Before, I think it was more like a black box where you got diagnosed with something, you got tests, but you didn't understand them. Right now, we are moving towards a place where you can actually understand your results, you actually understand your medical records through education, access to more information, so you can as well track your progress with any medications that you're taking or products that you are using. Then personalization is, of course, a key. It's been ongoing for some years now, where the personalized medicine area, where everything is tailored to you as an individual and not to you, the population as a whole. And here we have tendencies like omics analysis, specific providers for an individual, tailored clinical plans, but as well, this is being translated into other areas and other business areas like marketing and sales, where companies are looking to target customers as individuals and not just launching generalized campaigns. And last but not least, this is, of course, translating into the industry, where at the end, the companies are acquiring all this knowledge and putting personalized plans for all their customers. The second part that it's also really huge is data. There is, I'd say, I think the data is 30% of the whole world data is from healthcare. However, 97% of it goes unused, which is really shocking. So right now the tendency is using data basically for different aspects. So here I just also highlighted 4 different categories. The first one is R&D. Of course, having more data means that you can use it for advancing faster towards results. And this is where multiomics, for example, is gaining a huge power for personalized medicine, specifically for personalized treatment, tailoring treatments to an individual and to their omics background. Real world data, for example, is really used for clinical trials. You can even do control arms that are based on real world data and not using actual patients. And other categories as, for example, biomarker discovery and predictive analytics. With all this data, there is a growing need on making it interoperable and exchangeable. And here blockchain takes a huge part of it, where you have anonymized data that can be shared between different stakeholders like pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, research centers, and so on, in a private manner. And with this, we also are moving towards the interoperability of this data. We are seeing it right now a lot in the European Union with this Health Data Act that is going on. And basically what it's tending towards is that we have a unified health system where data is exchangeable and you don't lose any of yours. Another big bucket is synthetic data. Of course, for all this exchangeability, you need it to be anonymized if it's going to be used for research purposes, for example, and it cannot be tracked to a patient. Let's say you are a hospital, you have a lot of patient data, and you want to monetize it for clinical studies. That data cannot be tracked to a patient because of course, privacy concerns. Synthetic data has been born due to this need. And basically, these data sets that are artificial generated maintain the structural and statistical properties of the original data sets. So basically, that means that it's kind of the same statistics without being traceable back to the patients. There is as well this lack of data because of it being unused that is increasing, and that's why the need of synthetic data is growing more and more over the years. And finally, this is a last point that kind of merges what I mentioned in my previous slide with this one, that is the patient manages their own data. Sometimes the patient data is shared without the knowledge because it's anonymized and it can be done. However, right now, there are many solutions emerging for giving patients the power to choose where they want to send that data, and even not just like digital data, it can also be actual samples that are stored in biobanks. So there is these trends that are making the patient have the power of choosing and of participating in, for example, clinical trials with their own data. And just finally, to finalize with this last part of the presentation, I just have a couple of slides on the European landscape and the US landscape, just to briefly mention some things that might be helpful when thinking whether to move to the US. The European landscape, of course, it's quite different to the US one. It has some pros. It's really nice because some countries have really well-established reimbursement schemes, like, for example, Germany, that can fast-track, for example, digital solutions to have a wider usage. There is some countries that have government investments, private investment from, for example, VCs. It's, of course, there. However, this landscape can be a bit complicated for some startups just because there is quite an uneven regulatory landscape. And that's why I think some of the companies decide to jump to the US, for example, before expanding into other European countries. We see this because of the regulations, other cost barriers like having to deal with compliance that might be different from one nation to the other. All the things that you need to do for data protection and distribution is also sometimes a barrier. There is a huge healthcare system diversity. Reimbursement processes are good in some countries, not there yet in others. So there is really a fragmented market there. Lack of interoperability as well, dealing with different EHRs, for example, and of course languages, because we have Avant in Europe. So that's why sometimes might be the US landscape a good one to go to. There is, of course, a large market opportunity. There is also a large private healthcare system. Reimbursement opportunities can also power sales. VC funding and other types of funding are also there. And there is also a good amount of partnership opportunities, for example, with hospitals that they already have accelerator programs for startups, for example, that can help you validate and open doors to the new market. However, before jumping into the US landscape, there are some things that need to be taken into account. Of course, the regulation is different from Europe to US. You have to understand HIPAA compliance, FDA, whether you require it or not. And that's something that you need to navigate, and it can be costly as well. As the previous presenter was saying, the market needs is not the same. You really need to understand if the opportunity that you're seeing in your location it's also applicable to the US market, because of course it's a completely new landscape. So you have to make sure that that's an actual need. Of course, establishing a legal and operations base can be costly. And that's why sometimes I've seen startups first doing a proof of concept where they are based. And once they have gained some traction and gained these initial insights, then is when they decide to go to the US. And actually, that's what this graph reflects. From Frontline, where it says that from 3 to 5 years after a company is funded is when they decide to jump into the US. And that's when they have a first proof of concept and a first revenue to have the ability and capability to jump into the other market. And that's it on my side. I stop sharing now. I hope this was useful. And thank you so much, Carolina, for having me here today.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks a lot, and great to see insights. Earlier in the session, we heard a lot about the Silicon Valley mindset, and I think you've just translated it into the healthcare mindset if you also want to expand to the US. So thanks a lot. And same as before, if you are a healthcare startup and you're interested in and you're participating in See the Bravery and would like to connect with us, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we will connect you with our healthcare team represented today by Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You already see the screen share has changed, so we will have a very smooth final transition to our last but not least speaker of today. Good morning, Stefan. Can you hear us?
Yes, Carolina, and thank you for having me.
Amazing. So Stefan is here to represent, I think, the most deeply represented vertical in Seeds of Bravery. So the vertical which all of you in some way relate to. But from this perspective, what we consider as Plug and Play the deep tech vertical, and let's say our activities here. So I'll let you take it away, Stefan, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carolina, and good morning, good afternoon, evening for everyone else. Really excited to be here and happy to share a little bit more about what we're doing on the deep tech side here at Plug and Play Ventures. I'm based in Silicon Valley, but originally from Austria, so fairly familiar also with the European startup ecosystem and the pains, but also the benefits they have from building there. First, I wanted to give a quick introduction about myself. So I have a background in research, government, and venture capital. I've been working here in Silicon Valley for most of my career. Currently, I'm a senior associate on the ventures team where I'm leading the deep tech investments, putting together our accelerator program, and then also manage the corporate partnerships that we have here. And my portfolio that I've invested in, I've put a few selective deals here in the 3 years that I've been with the company, but mainly I'm interested in 3 topics. I'm doing a lot of deals in industrial deep tech, climate hard tech, so topics like carbon capture, clean energy production, and then also my personal passion is space technologies. And I'm also a mentor for the European space startups from the Cassini Business Accelerator, which is a 6-month program that we're supporting. And in my previous roles, I worked for the German government, where I did market research and US market entrance support for startups and small, medium-sized businesses. And in my life before Plug and Play, I was also building a space exploration startup in Europe. And let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here with Plug and Play on the deep tech side. So our platform is actually more than 10 years old. We started more than a decade ago and accelerated close to 400 startups since its beginning. Some of the most noteworthy startups that have actually gone through our program include robotics companies like Covariant or Data Robot, but also UiPath from Eastern Europe. And the way we support the companies is we give them access to our corporate network, which you can see a selection of the 15 plus partners that we have here in Silicon Valley, with companies like LG Display, Samsung. We work with companies like Nokia, Wesco, Mitsumi. So it's really a mix of, like, many of them are industrials interested, but some of them are heavy industries or consumer electronic producers. But this is just who we're working with here. Because we also have more than 100 other partners that are interested in these technologies across the globe. And this is really the large benefit that we can help the companies, not only here in Silicon Valley, but really across the globe when they're looking to connect with partners there. And to date, we have made also around 80 investments. And in the next few minutes, I'll share also a quick overview of who these companies are, and I'll highlight a few of those. Before that, I also just wanted to briefly touch upon why we're investing in deep tech. I mean, there's many, let's say, fallacies or biases involved when it comes to these technologies. Oftentimes it's said it's hard to scale, you don't have the returns, there's more capital requirements. But historically speaking, venture capital has actually found its success from supporting these frontier pushing technologies, particularly the ones that can generate extreme outcomes. And we had the lean startup model, let's think about the internet software companies. It has been successful, but now we're actually getting into like a late stage of that, and increasing competition actually makes it really, really difficult to get profitability with these kind of niches. And that's why we believe that it's actually one of the greatest time as an investor to explore these new frontiers. And venture capital has actually historically, particularly in Silicon Valley, been also investing a lot into these deep tech companies, whether it's in the semiconductor space or other frontier technologies, where these extreme outcomes have actually been quite lucrative. And especially when we look at these traditional industries like energy or manufacturing, there's a lot of potential for disruption right now. And it's also something that society is craving, because these topics like climate change and other advancements that we require to actually tackle these issues. I believe that deep tech startups are actually uniquely qualified to tackle these. And now I believe it's really the best time ever to invest in these kind of companies. And I just wanted to go through quickly, this is kind of how we're seeing, these waves of innovation and what technological breakthroughs actually happen over time. When we're looking back, the first major wave that we saw was, when we look at combustion engines or electricity. Combustion engine really revolutionized not only transportation, but it fueled the Industrial Revolution, which transformed industries, economies, but also society as a whole. And then also electricity laid the groundwork for modern life, whether it's lighting up your home, but even powering entire cities. And then we had other waves like aviation, electronics, that actually connected us globally, for the first time. And then later on, we moved into the 1990s, where we had digital networks and software that really brought us to the information age, where we were then democratizing access to knowledge and enabling a digital global economy. And we believe today is actually the steepest curve that we have seen to date, with groundbreaking technologies like AI. We have next generation computing topics that are emerging, whether it's also solutions in the energy space or space explorations that are transforming industries, and then also hopefully tackling some of these major issues that we have, for example, in sustainability. And each of these waves have fundamentally changed the way humans are moving forward. And as we stand here now at this latest wave, I think it's not just really redefining industries, but it's really gonna change how we're interacting with the world around us. And yeah, really excited to actually be on the frontier here to make some of these technologies possible. And just to look at what we're defining as deep tech, as plug and play, we have determined the following buckets. So typically, I would say when you look at deep tech companies, oftentimes there's also the biotech component there, but we at Plug and Play kind of differ from that area because most of our partners have more of an industrial focus. So we're very much doubling down on physical industries. Of course, data connectivity, AI has been a huge topic, and especially the AI-driven automation is very much, a horizontal across industries where we see improvements in operational efficiency, but then also augmenting how humans are capable of executing on their jobs. Of course, also the chip side of things and so to speak, the picks and shovel of the AI craze have been very interesting. And we have also seen, that not only NVIDIA, but then also new emerging technologies, whether it's in the photonic space, whether it's parallel computing capabilities. There's so many exciting topics in that area that we're looking to explore. Manufacturing is somewhat of an evergreen topic. It never goes out of fashion. I think the main issue here is that many of the producing countries of the world, like think of China, think of South Korea, they're very much, facing birth rate declines. So we really much have to see, the future with automation, with industrial robotics that is actually not just replacing, but then very much stepping into the shoes of all these unfulfilled positions in the manufacturing space. Energy systems are becoming smarter also, but then hopefully also carbon neutral, because we can't keep burning fossil fuels as we have in the past. And that's why we're very excited about these kind of novel, cleaner technologies that will transform some of these industrial processes. And last year, my personal passion is for space. I believe for humanity to go forward and to also be connected, we need to explore what's outside. There's been so many progress that's been done in the past. We kind of take many of these technologies for granted. Think of GPS, think of wildfire detection, particularly here in California, a huge topic. But in the last few years, rapidly declining launch costs. Now you can bring payloads to space cheaper than ever before. It's very much unlocking new capabilities that we have never seen before. And we're super excited about the new space economy and want to be a part of that as well. Now I just wanted to highlight two of our companies. I see we don't have too much time, but I'll be fairly quick here. This is just two of the companies I'm personally super excited about that go into these mega trends that I mentioned. One of them is Archetype AI. I think most people have seen or maybe heard some of the keynotes that Jensen has spoken about with NVIDIA recently. He said that largely the company's direction is going to be set on physical AI, where he believes it's the next frontier. We have made similar bets last year or 2 years ago already with Archetype, where we found an exceptional team. They were working together at Google for more than a decade, and they have other team members from NASA, Samsung, MIT. And what this company does, they're actually building an AI platform that interprets sensor data from the physical environment and then generates insights about people, places, but also events happening in real time. And it's an image generative AI, but with the ability to actually comprehend sensor data, which also includes video, audio, environmental data alongside that text data. And this generative AI can then address any query regarding real world business operations and also conduct data analysis. So it can summarize large amounts of sensor data. It can identify patterns for you, but also predict behaviors, for example, customer purchasing intents. And then it can also identify risk, threats, or anomalies in your environment and monitor and respond to these specific events. And all this can be accomplished simply through a free-form natural language query. which makes this super accessible to everyone within a company. And they only started a little bit less than 2 years ago, but they raised around 13 million to date. And they've very much been a high flyer in our recent portfolio on that note. The other company I'm super excited about was one of my first space investments that I personally did, was Lumen Orbit. They got quite some buzz last year after they got out of Y Combinator. We invested in their pre-seed round before that. And what they're building, it's quite the ambitious mission, but they're intending on building hyperscale data centers in space. Their assumption is terrestrial data centers are putting a huge strain on electricity grids, also the freshwater distribution, and you can't really expand them indefinitely because they're constricted by permitting systems. It takes a long time to build out new data centers, and it's not going to be possible for us to build out these like huge scale data centers fast enough the way we build them today. And there's many voices in the industry that actually have confirmed this thesis. How Lumen is trying to solve this, they want to take advantage of the falling launch cost, but then also access 24/7 solar energy in space and low-cost passive cooling that they can tap into. And if with that approach, you can almost scale the data centers indefinitely without the physical or the permitting constraints that you would face on Earth. So we can actually keep training AI models and hopefully not destroy our planet while doing so. And yeah, they're actually launching their first demonstrator satellite in May this year. And they're claiming they will have 100x more powerful GPUs than have ever been operated in space previously. So really excited about these guys. You know, they've gotten so much buzz. I think they 10x their valuation within a year. We'll see how it unfolds, but generally speaking, this is one of the very exciting topics that I've been exploring recently. So Carolina, with that, I would like to pass it on. I know I'm a bit over time, but thank you for having me. And yeah, all the best.
Thanks so much, Stefan. I cannot end this session without giving you an insight. We had a missed opportunity today to connect with Promin Aerospace, which is the first Ukrainian aerospace company developing private launchers. So just wanted to give a shout out there. We missed Alexandra's participation today, but as a fellow space aficionado like yourself, we have to also give those shout outs to our Ukrainian companies doing that work. Thanks so much for joining, Stefan. I think it was a really interesting final 2 use cases to end today on, and of course also keeping our eyes on those really disruptive innovations that we've been kind of theorizing about all session, and there you ended us off with some great case studies. Thanks a lot. As usual, if you guys have questions, if you would like to connect with Stefan, don't hesitate to let me know. We will support with any follow-ups thereafter. This session. And I just want to end with a final word. So you might have heard, but we have a series of market discovery workshops. Tomorrow will be our market discovery workshop dedicated to the French market. So if you're interested, please use the link that was just shared in the chat to sign up for this. It will be like today, but instead of focusing on the US market, will be a focus on France. Similarly, on February 16th, we'll have the same session for Spain and Portugal. And finally, I just want to also share that the final cutoff date for Seeds of Bravery open call will be the 27th of January. So your final chance to get any, of those available grants. We'll end here with our social media channels. This webinar will be uploaded after this session in a couple of days to our YouTube channel, so you can use this as a resource when considering future activities in the US. I want to say a thank you to all the speakers. They've, of course, dropped off, but Stefan and Abby, especially those who are still here, thank you so much for your participation and the smooth workshop that we had today. And with that, I guess Abby will end this webinar. And I just want to say a big thank you and wish you all a great month, week, year. Here's to 2025. Thank you, everyone.